Chapter 667. The Azura Sea's 4 great god kings was led by the Azura god king Luo Fan. In Luo Fan's heart, that god king Ansun was an extremely loyal younger brother. But now, his younger brother had been killed right under his nose. Annoyance, regret, anger. In an instant, all kinds of chaotic emotions filled the Azura god king Luo Fan's heart. The killing intent in his heart had also soared. Jiang Lan. Luo Fan snarled in his heart. The blood ruler in his hand, Lifebreaker, immediately started to emit a mournful and conspicuous crimson-colored radiance. The blood ruler slowly flew to Luo Fan's feet. Luo Fan was about to step on the blood ruler and chase after Jiang Lan. However, Qin Yu would not allow the Azura God King to go and kill Jiang Lan. Luo Fan's speed instantly reached his limit. He rapidly rushed forward. However, he only managed to rush out 2 to 3 meters. Luo Fan felt as if he had crashed into an incomparably hard boulder. Bang! Luo Fan ruthlessly crashed into the spatial barrier that Qin Yu had formed in an instant. Luo Fan felt a bit dizzy. However, when Luo Fan was about to break through the spatial barrier and rush forward, he discovered front, back, up, down, left, right. There were spatial barriers in all directions. It was as if he, Luo Fan, was trapped in a cage. He was only able to move within a small range of 1 or 2 steps. Qin Yu. It's definitely Qin Yu. Luo Fan immediately thought of Qin Yu. Other than Qin Yu, there was no one else capable of trapping him. The current Luo Fan was like a trapped and enraged lion. Luo Fan angrily turned around and looked at the black-gowned Qin Yu who was standing in the air not far away. At this moment, Qin Yu was holding the divine spear Waning Snow in his hand and coldly looking at Luo Fan. However, he was not moving at all. Luo Fan, don't forget our agreement from the beginning. Qin Yu's voice sounded in the Azura God King Luo Fan's mind. If you were to attack, then you would be forcing me to attack you. Luo Fan took a deep breath. He stared at Qin Yu with his cold gaze for a long time. Spatial barrier. Luo Fan looked at Qin Yu. His heart gradually calmed down. According to what Luo Fan knew, space had already been frozen. Logically speaking, it was impossible to use the power of space to bind others. However, Qin Yu did it. Furthermore, Luo Fan was simply unable to sense the spatial energy binding him. As a god king who had grasped the laws of space, he was unable to sense the spatial energy. It sounded ridiculous, but it was the truth. These spatial laws are different from the spatial laws of my universe. Qin Yu smiled inwardly. He had enough confidence. Luo Fan looked at the divine spear Waning Snow in Qin Yu's hand. The divine spear Waning Snow had already displayed its astonishing strength more than once. Regardless of whether it was in the Sage Emperor Palace of the North Pole or when he fought with the Sage Emperors in the South Sea. The power of the divine spear Waning Snow had already been revealed. His attack power should be stronger than mine. Furthermore, he is able to control the special spatial energy to bind me. Furthermore, he is also able to teleport. Luo Fan felt a sharp pain in his heart. Reason told Luo Fan that it was impossible for him to break free from Qin Yu's bindings. Little Un, I'm sorry. Luo Fan said softly in his heart. In the end, Luo Fan chose to remain silent. If he were to act, it would be useless. Instead, it would cause Qin Yu and the Azura Sea to become complete antagonists. This was something that Luo Fan did not wish to see. As a leader, he must first consider the people that were still alive. Qin Yu, I will not act. Merely, if that Jiang Lan were to attack the people of my Azura Sea again, then we will fight to the death. The Azura God King Luo Fan said via divine awareness voice transmission. Qin Yu nodded with a smile on his face. Rest assured, Uncle Lan will not kill the people of your Azura Sea again. Qin Yu guaranteed via divine awareness voice transmission. After that, Qin Yu's indifferent gaze moved away from the Azura God King's side and looked directly at Jiang Lan. At this moment, there was a trace of blood on the corner of Jiang Lan's mouth. However, his injury was not serious. Qin Yu, who was using his spatial energy to observe the battle, knew very well that this injury was caused by Uncle Lon using his gauze feather blade, time acceleration and time stop to block the 5 colored blade rays and the 2 sword rays. The might of the origin energy was truly enormous. It's truly marvelous. Qin Yu smiled as he looked at Zhang Lan's attack. Zhang Lan's usage of the flow of time had simply reached the pinnacle of perfection. Wherever Zhang Lan passed by, the flow of time would naturally change unceasingly. As time and space changed, Zhang Lan's speed was also extremely strange. It's extremely difficult for the 8 great sage emperors to catch up to Uncle Lon. Although that Azura God King has also comprehended time stop, his mastery of time acceleration is inferior to Uncle Lan's. Qin Yu evaluated in his heart. Time acceleration. The more times one accelerated, the greater one's attainment in time acceleration. When the time acceleration reached a limit, that would be the limit. A step further would be time stop. As for how to use time acceleration, that would depend on one's experience. For example, one could also accelerate time to 1,000,000 times. However, for some people, they would only rigidly accelerate time to 1,000,000 times. However, Uncle Lon was able to ingeniously change the degree of time acceleration unceasingly to achieve all kinds of ingenious results. This was experience, or in other words, battle talent. Asterisk 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 at this moment, Jiang Fan, Zhou Hua, Duan Luyun and the rest of the 8 great sage emperors were all feeling extremely complicated. None of them had expected that a super expert comparable to the Azura God King would appear from the 8 great divine families. Time stop. This remarkable ability was something that they wished to possess even in their dreams. However, it had now appeared in Zhang Lan's hands. Second brother. Zhang Fan's heart was filled with all sorts of emotions. Sour, sweet, bitter and spicy. In the misty sky, several tens of rays of light were unceasingly shuttling back and forth. The trajectory of Zhang Lan's flight was extremely fast and graceful. Although many of the ordinary god kings were afraid of Zhang Lan, when they saw that Zhang Lan was injured by the origin energy attack, they all became greedy and started flying. They were prepared to attack at any moment. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, Zhang Lan drew a nearly perfect trajectory and directly flew toward Huang Fu Lei. Huang Fu Lei's expression changed. He immediately unleashed all of his abilities to frantically attack Zhang Lan. In a single breath, he sent out 8 sword rays. At the same time, he rapidly dodged the incoming sword rays. 8 sword rays. This was the limit of Huang Fu Lei's strongest attack. Like a net, these 8 sword rays blocked Zhang Lan's path. Practically all of the god kings in the surroundings were looking at Zhang Lan. They wanted to see how Zhang Lan would handle these sword rays. In the eyes of those god kings, even if Zhang Lan was not injured, his speed would still decrease a bit. Huff. Zhang Lan lightly smiled. It was as if he did not see the 8 sword rays. As if he had stepped into another parallel space, he actually easily shuttled through the 8 sword rays. He was not injured in the slightest. Stepping into another space? Of course not. None of the god kings present were ordinary people. They were all able to tell that Zhang Lan's usage of time acceleration had reached the pinnacle of perfection. However, the way Zhang Lan passed through the 8 sword rays had caused the distance between him and Huang Fu Lei to increase. Amazing. Huang Fu Lei saw Zhang Lan flying away. He was unable to refrain his admiration. Liu Xiang, it's best that we withdraw. This Zhang Lan is not easy to deal with, Huang Fu Lei said to Huang Fu Liuxiang via voice transmission. In this confrontation, Huang Fu Lei had realized the nearly insurmountable gap between him and Zhang Lan. No. Huang Fu Liuxiang's gaze was fixed onto Zhang Lan the entire time. Big brother, although that Zhang Lan is powerful, didn't you see that every time he withstood an attack from the origin energy, his injuries would become a bit more serious? Huang Fu Liuxiang still did not give up hope. Liuxiang, don't think about it anymore. Didn't you see that Qin Yu was beside you the entire time? The way I see it, if that Zhang Lan is unable to withstand the origin energy, then I reckon that Qin Yu will act to help Zhang Lan. Huang Fu Lei urged. Qin Yu? Huang Fu Liuxiang said confidently. Big brother, didn't you see that Qin Yu is in a deadlock with the Azura God King? It is impossible for Qin Yu to act. Once he acts, the Azura God King will also act. Thus, there is no need for you to consider Qin Yu's situation. Furthermore, that Qin Yu possesses a friendly relationship with us. Even if he were to act, he would likely not kill us. Huang Fu Lei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You've already tried to kill his Uncle Lon. How could he possibly be lenient toward you? If these words were to be heard by Qin Yu, he would definitely sneer. Whoosh! The sharp whistling sound of the air exploding due to the rapid speed of Zhonglan's flight began to sound unceasingly. However, the whistling sound suddenly stopped. The sound had actually disappeared once again. Everyone knew that Zhonglan had used time stop again. Bang! The mournful blade ray was extremely cold. From top to bottom, it streaked across a green-gowned old man. Zhonglan appeared to have done nothing and continued to fly forward. Bang! The time stop disappeared. As for that green-gowned old man who had not moved at all, he suddenly moved. That green-gowned old man's body was directly split into two from his head to his crotch. Whoosh, whoosh. His blood, internal organs, large intestines and small intestines all flowed out from his body. After being split into two, he fell from the sky. As for this green-gowned old man's true spirit, it had already been scattered by the blade ray. Another God King had died. Many of the God Kings were shocked by this scene and started to worry. Zhonglan's strength was truly too powerful. Furthermore, he possessed a first-rate grand mist spiritual treasure. Even the 8 great sage emperor's speed was inferior to Zhonglan's. This dead God King ought to be a hidden God King. Qin Yu took a glance at the green-gowned old man's corpse. Qin Yu was able to guess why Zhonglan was doing all of this. What Zhonglan wanted to do was to kill in order to intimidate his enemies. If his enemies were to continue to chase after him, then Zhonglan would continue to kill them. He would kill them one by one until they trembled in fear, until they lost their confidence. Actually, Zhonglan was selective in who he wanted to kill. In the 12 quadrillion years since the birth of the divine realm, Zhonglan belonged to the side of the 8 great divine families. Thus, the majority of the people that had enmity with him were from the Ascender realm. Of course, there were also a few among the 8 great divine families that did not have a good relationship with Zhonglan. Bang! Zhonglan once again used the gauze feather blade and time stop to block the 2 5-colored blade rays. However, even with this, Zhonglan still felt as if his body had been pierced through by lightning. Blood directly rushed out from his throat and flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Zhonglan's gaze swept through his surroundings. Suddenly, Zhonglan locked onto Huang Fu Liuxiang, who stood not far away. Ever since Zhonglan had attacked, this Huang Fu Liuxiang had been pacing back and forth not far away the entire time. She was prepared to attack at any moment. Huang Fu Liuxiang, I have already spared you twice. Zhonglan's divine awareness voice transmission sounded in Huang Fu Liuxiang's mind. Huang Fu Liuxiang was startled. Soon after, she saw Zhonglan turning into a ray of light and directly rushing toward her. In fact, since the beginning, Zhonglan had 2 opportunities to kill Huang Fu Liuxiang. However, Zhonglan saw that Huang Fu Liuxiang belonged to the side of the 8 great divine families. Thus, Zhonglan had been flying toward another path the entire time and spared her life. However, Zhonglan discovered that he had spared the God Kings of the 8 great divine families. However, other than Duanmu Yu, Zhongxing and a few others, the rest of the God Kings of the 8 great divine families were all ready to attack him. Zhonglan had finally become ruthless. He no longer cared that his opponents were from the 8 great divine families. Ah! Huang Fu Liuxiang was greatly alarmed. She immediately waved her hand and several green ribbons flew toward Zhonglan. A cold light appeared in Zhonglan's eyes. His lips lightly moved. Time stop. The flying green ribbons stopped flying. As for Huang Fu Liuxiang, she also became motionless. Liuxiang, Huang Fu Lei, who had already retreated far away, was unable to rescue Huang Fu Liuxiong in time. He could only watch as Zhang Lan flew past Huang Fu Liuxiong with lightning speed. After a while, the time-stop disappeared. Huang Fu Liuxiong's body powerlessly fell from the sky. Shen Tuyin, Duanmu Rufeng, Putai Tu, Tang Xiang and many other god kings of the 8 great divine families were all shocked. Zhang Lan had finally decided to act ruthlessly against the god kings of the 8 great divine families. Uncle Lan. Seeing this scene, Qin Yu smiled and nodded. Qin Yu had already seen that Zhang Lan's ruthlessness had achieved its goal. Not only the Ascender realm, the hidden god kings and even the god kings of the 8 great divine families did not dare to approach Zhang Lan. Chapter 668. Whoosh! The god kings of the 8 great divine families all began to rapidly fly far away in all directions. As for the several hidden god kings that had originally followed the 8 great divine families' god kings to fish in troubled waters, they saw that the god kings from the Ascender side and the 8 great divine families' god kings had all fled far away and then saw Zhang Lan's rapidly approaching figure. These god kings also began to flee far away in all directions. In a blink of an eye, there was not a single god king in the vicinity of Zhang Lan. You should have done this long ago. Zhou Hua had a joyous expression on his face. He immediately waved out sword rays that contained the 3 great origin energies. 3 sword rays flew toward Zhang Lan in succession. As for the leader of the 5 great sage emperors of the 5 elements Great Formation Array, Huang Fu Yu, his face appeared to be covered with a layer of frost. His gaze was firmly fixed on Zhang Lan in the distance. Zhang Lan, I'll kill you. At this moment, Huang Fu Yu's heart was filled with killing intent. After all, the person that Zhang Lan had killed earlier was his younger sister. Huang Fu Yu coldly waved his hand. He waved out 3 5-colored blade rays in succession. This was the limit of the 5 great sage emperors' attacks. The 3 5-colored blade rays rapidly flew toward Zhang Lan. The 3 sword rays and 3 5-colored blade rays attacked Zhang Lan from 2 different directions. Their speed was so fast that it was much faster than Zhang Lan's flying speed. Currently, those god kings were all far away from Zhang Lan. Thus, Zhang Lan did not have the time to deal with the other god kings. The situation is a bit bad. Seeing this scene, Qin Yu started to frown. Uncle Lan is still a relatively arrogant person. It would not be too late to save him after he is about to be unable to withstand the attacks. Qin Yu resisted his impulse and did not immediately attack. Zhang Lan faced the 3 sword rays and the 3 5-colored blade rays simultaneously. Time acceleration. Zhang Lan instead slightly accelerated the sword rays and the blade rays. Merely, there were 3 sword rays and 3 5-colored blade rays. There were a total of 6 sword rays. The time acceleration of each of the 6 sword rays was different. This caused the 6 sword rays that were supposed to attack Zhang Lan at the same time to appear in sequence. When the first blade ray approached Zhang Lan, bang! Time stop. Zhang Lan once again used time stop. After that, he directly controlled the gauze feather blade and hacked it onto the blade ray. Immediately, the 5-colored blade ray exploded. Zhang Lan himself stayed far away. However, the explosion of origin power also broke the time stop. Bang! 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 5 loud explosions sounded in succession. In a snap of a finger, Zhang Lan had used the gauze feather blade to break through 5 attacks. Pooh! Zhang Lan suddenly sprayed out a mouthful of blood. His complexion was as pale as paper. Because Zhang Lan had used time acceleration, these 5 attacks were in sequence. This allowed Zhang Lan to not have to face all of the attacks at the same time. However, even though they were separated and blocked 5 times in succession, Zhang Lan was still seriously injured. How could the power of Source be so easily resisted? Even if Zhang Lan possessed a first-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure, even if he possessed a second-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure, he would still be seriously injured by a single attack from the 8 great sage emperors. The 8 great sage emperors are truly powerful. Without a first-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure, even god kings that have comprehended time's stop would not be a match for them. Qin Yu exclaimed in admiration in his heart. Zhou Hua, Huang Fuyu, and the others continued to attack. Several more five-colored saber lights and sword lights flew out. Even though Zhong Lan had yet to touch it, he was already able to sense the frightening fluctuation of the origin energy within it. The attack power was truly too powerful. Uncle Lan, do you need my help? Qin Yu was unable to refrain himself from sending a divine awareness voice transmission. No need. Zhong Lan's reply was extremely decisive. Qin Yu was so anxious that he started to clench his fist tightly. Currently, all of those ordinary god kings had fled far away. They were using their divine awareness to watch the battle from afar. Without them being a burden, the 8 great sage emperors were able to attack without any restraint. As for Zhong Lan, he was also unable to kill any more god kings. Bang! 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 Using the gauze feather blade, Zhong Lan blocked 3 attacks in succession. However, each time he blocked an attack, his complexion would become a bit more pale. After blocking 3 attacks, Zhong Lan's complexion had become unprecedentedly gloomy. However, this time around, there were a total of 6 attacks. Zhong Lan had only managed to block 3 of them. Huang Fuyu and them displayed cruel smiles on their faces. As for Zhong Lan, he was feeling extremely complicated. No matter what, this Zhong Lan was still his, Zhong Fan's, younger brother. Huff. Qin Yu no longer cared about what Uncle Lan was thinking. He directly used his new cosmos's spatial energy to teleport Zhong Lan to his side. Where's he? Zhou Hua, Duanmu Yun, Huang Fuyu and them originally saw that Zhong Lan was about to die. However, at this moment, Zhong Lan had actually disappeared. They began to look to their surroundings. After that, the 8 great sage emperors all saw Zhong Lan beside Qin Yu. Little Yu, thank you. Zhong Lan lightly smiled to Qin Yu. He then flipped his hand and took out a spiritual pellet and swallowed it. Zhong Lan's injury was healing at an extremely fast speed. Fog City was surrounded by fog. Within this endless fog, one could faintly see the 8 great sage emperors standing in the air. Their gowns were fluttering in the wind. The 8 of them stood shoulder to shoulder and coldly looked at Qin Yu and Zhong Lan. Zhong Lan, hand over the back earth seal. Zhou Hua of the 8 great sage emperors shouted angrily. Qin Yu did not have the slightest trace of a smile on his face. His expression was extremely cold. Like an ice blade, his gaze swept past the 8 great sage emperors. Hand over the back earth seal? Zhou Hua, aren't you all a bit too confident? Did you truly think that you 8 great sage emperors are unparalleled? These 8 great sage emperors actually also gave Qin Yu a headache. The clan protection's spiritual treasures of the 8 great divine families could be used for both attack and defense. Not only did they protect the body, they also protected the soul. Qin Yu had once used the divine spear Waning Snow to attack a sage emperor. However, even the divine spear Waning Snow was unable to kill a sage emperor with a single strike. Using the divine spear Waning Snow, Qin Yu was able to seriously injure a sage emperor with the first strike and kill a sage emperor with the second strike. However, at this moment, it was not a single sage emperor. Instead, it was 8 sage emperors. It was indeed extremely difficult for Qin Yu to take care of the 8 great sage emperors that were gathered together. Qin Yu, are you able to withstand our attacks? Zhou Hua said with a cold smile. The other 3 god kings of the Thunder Punishment City were all killed by Qin Yu. Thus, Zhou Hua's hatred toward Qin Yu was as deep as the ocean. Ridiculous. Qin Yu glanced at the 8 great sage emperors with an indifferent gaze. I am capable of teleportation. I am able to easily dodge your attacks. What about you all? Under my attacks, even if you don't die, you'll still be seriously injured. The 8 great sage emperors have formed a great formation. How could their defense be something that you can break through? The leader Zhou Hua had a face filled with confidence. Qin Yu was slightly startled. Suddenly, Qin Yu came to a realization. Once the 8 great sage emperors joined hands, their 8 origin energies would complement each other. Not only would their attack power increase enormously, even their defense would increase enormously. It was likely that after the 8 great sage emperors formed a great formation and stood there for him to attack, it would be extremely difficult for him to injure them. Oh, as expected of the 8 great sage emperors. You have some skills. Qin Yu mocked. That Duanmu Yun said. Qin Yu, it's good that you understand. Quickly have that Zhonglon hand over the back earth seal and we'll forget about today's matter. Otherwise, Otherwise what will we do? Tell me, I really want to know. Qin Yu looked to the 8 great sage emperors without the slightest fear. The 8 great sage emperors were stunned. They all knew that Qin Yu was able to teleport when using spatial freezing. However, they were unable to teleport. In this case, even if their attack power was astonishing, how could they possibly injure Qin Yu? Qin Yu. Zhou Hu stood out and said angrily, "If you all do not hand over the back earth seal, then our 8 great sage emperors' single aura 8 elements will directly bombard the Fog City and turn the Fog City and your purple mystic mansion into ashes." Qin Yu narrowed his eyes. A cold light leaked out from his narrowed eyes. Boom! The boundless new cosmos spatial energy suddenly bound the 8 great sage emperors. The 8 great sage emperors felt as if they were being wrapped by ropes. They were actually unable to move at all. "It's you all who are courting death," Qin Yu said coldly. The expressions of the 8 great sage emperors all took a huge change. They all felt that they were unable to move. Without the slightest hesitation, the 8 of them simultaneously used a special skill of their clan protection spiritual treasures. Buzz. Qin Yu felt that the entire divine realm was shaking. A frightening power burst forth from the 8 great sage emperors. The new cosmos spatial energy that bound the 8 great sage emperors was actually broken apart. The 8 spiritual pearls floating above the 8 great sage emperors started to revolve. The frightening origin energy penetrated through the heaven and earth. The 8 great spiritual pearls had actually completely connected with the origin energy of this cosmos. Qin Yu's new cosmos spatial energy was simply unable to suppress the origin energy of this cosmos. As expected of the 8 great sage emperors, you have some ability. Qin Yu's eyes shined. Immediately after, Qin Yu disappeared into thin air. Wait! Huang Fuyu suddenly shouted in a loud voice. Qin Yu's figure appeared once again. He had already arrived beside the 8 great sage emperors. Qin Yu held the divine spear waning snow and looked to Huang Fuyu. "Huang Fuyu, I owe you a favor. Speak, what is it?" Huang Fuyu squeezed out a smile to Qin Yu. "Qin Yu, let's each take a step back. What do you think?" "Take a step back?" Qin Yu was confused. "How do we take a step back?" Huang Fuyu exchanged glances with Duanmu Yun and them. After that, Huang Fuyu smiled to Qin Yu and said, "How about this? We do not want the back earth seal on Zhonglon. However, Zhonglon must agree to not fight for the all-people seal. What do you think?" Qin Yu was annoyed. "At the very most, it'll be the same as the Azura God King. Uncle Lon agrees to not step into the exalted celestial mountain from today until the birth of a new exalted celestial," Qin Yu said coldly. Huang Fuyu and them shook their heads. They were unable to accept this. If this was the case, then even if any of them were to obtain the all-people seal, Zhonglon would still be able to wait outside of the relief sculpture tunnel to fight for it. Treating the Azura God King like that and treating Uncle Lon like this? Looking down on me, looking down on my Uncle Lon? Killing intent lingered on Qin Yu's body. "Little Yu, agree to them." Zhonglan's voice sounded. "Agree." Qin Yu turned around and looked to Uncle Lon. Qin Yu was confused. Why must they endure? Qin Yu did not fear these 8 great sage emperors in the slightest. If they wanted to fight, then let's fight. Who would be afraid of who? The 8 great sage emperors wanted to extinguish his Fog City. However, could it be that he could not extinguish the Thunder Punishment City, Mount Blazing Flame, Jade Ripple Lake and the other sacred lands? Zhonglon lightly smiled to Qin Yu. He then looked to the 8 great sage emperors. His gaze swept across all of the sage emperors. I, Zhonglon, hereby swear to the heavens that as long as the sage emperors do not come to disturb me and the people of the Fog City, I will not go and fight for the All-People Seal. Zhou Hua and them glanced at each other. In the end, they all flew away in silence. Through their second encounter with Qin Yu, those god kings and sage emperors had already come to know the Fog City was inviolable. On the side of the Fog City was Qin Yu and Zhonglon. The two of them were both super experts. Even if the 8 great sage emperors were to come together, they would still not be able to do anything to them. Everyone understood that the strongest place in the divine realm was no longer the Azura Sea or the 8 great sacred lands. Instead, it was the Fog City. This battle had consolidated the status of the Fog City. Just like that, Qin Yu and Zhonglon watched as the 8 great sage emperors and the various god kings in the distance all left. They finally left. Qin Yu said with a smile, "There's still people that haven't left." Zhonglon looked to the 2 people beside him. That Azura God King Luo Fan and Blood Sea Queen Shui Yun were both still here. The Azura God King Luo Fan took a deep glance at Zhonglon. His gaze contained a trace of killing intent. However, in the end, Luo Fan still turned around and flew away. As for that Blood Sea Queen Shui Yun, she began to fly toward Qin Yu. Qin Yu. The Blood Sea Queen looked to Qin Yu. "I hope that you will not contest for the All-People Seal with me." In the Blood Sea Queen's heart, since Zhonglon and the Azura God King were both unwilling to enter the exalted celestial mountain, then wouldn't the All-People Seal be hers? Merely, she was still afraid of Qin Yu. "Why should I?" Qin Yu started to laugh. The Blood Sea Queen said coldly, "Because of the agreement between you and me, if I were to spare Hong Yun and Zi Xia's lives, you would not disturb me from seizing the All-People Seal." "Good. I will definitely not disturb you from seizing the All-People Seal. However, if you do not have the ability to seize the All-People Seal, then it should be fine for me to act," Qin Yu said with a smile. The Blood Sea Queen humphed coldly. However, she was still satisfied with Qin Yu's reply. From the Blood Sea Queen's point of view, in a situation where the Azura God King, Zhonglon and Qin Yu were not going to contest for the All-People Seal with her, it was impossible for her to not be able to obtain the All-People Seal. "Blood Sea Queen, I have agreed to this matter of yours. However, I also wish to ask you. Last time, you had used Zi Xia and Hong Yun's lives to threaten me for the first-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure. However, why did you suddenly give up?" Qin Yu had been puzzled by this question the entire time. Chapter 669. Hearing this question, the Blood Sea Queen Shui Yun raised her eyebrows. A rare smile actually appeared on her face. With a smile on her face, she looked to Qin Yu and said, "Qin Yu, if you truly wish to know the answer, then help me obtain the All-People Seal and I'll tell you." Hearing that, Qin Yu wanted to curse out at this Blood Sea Queen. It was merely a simple question. Yet, this Blood Sea Queen was actually still hiding her answer. Qin Yu lightly smiled. "Blood Sea Queen, just pretend that I never asked. Uncle Lon, let's return." After that, Qin Yu turned around and said to Zhonglon beside him. Zhonglon also lightly nodded. The two of them turned into 2 rays of light and flew toward the distant Fog City. The Blood Sea Queen watched as Qin Yu and Zhonglan's figures disappeared into the Fog City that was faintly discernible within the fog. Then, she laughed softly. Interesting, interesting. After that, the Blood Sea Queen's figure moved and disappeared into the fog. Countless arm-sized lightning bolts pierced through the heaven and earth. In the center of the lightning bolts was a floating city, the Thunder Punishment City. The Thunder Punishment City was exactly the same as it was hundreds of millions of years ago. Merely, of the 4 god kings in the Thunder Punishment City, 3 had died. Only the Northwest Sage Emperor Zhou Hua remained. Thunder Punishment City. Inside the secluded courtyard that the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial lived in, Zhou Hua walked to the entrance of the courtyard nervously. His heart was filled with worries as he looked to the closed courtyard gate. Zhou Hua paced back and forth for a long time. In the end, he extended his hand to knock on the door. Right after he extended his hand, the courtyard gate opened by itself with a creak sound. Come in. The thunder punishment exalted celestial's sonorous and powerful voice sounded. Yes, Lord Father. Zhou Hua accepted the order respectfully and then walked into the courtyard. At this moment, the thunder punishment exalted celestial was standing in the courtyard with his hands behind his back. His back was facing Zhou Hua. His figure was still that tall and straight. When Zhou Hua saw the thunder punishment exalted celestial, all of the worries and grievances in his heart surged forth. He immediately bowed mournfully and said, Lord Father, Zhou Ran is also dead. Lord Father, please uphold justice. Zhou Hua was truly powerless. Facing Qin Yu, Zhou Hua was completely helpless. The 8 great sage emperors were powerful. Even when facing the Asura God King, they were still able to intimidate the Asura God King. But facing Qin Yu, it would be difficult to even injure Qin Yu. However, this time around, Jiang Lan's strength had actually increased abruptly. He had become a super expert comparable to the Asura God King. The current Fog City possessed 2 super experts, Qin Yu and Jiang Lan. Even if the 8 great sage emperors went together, they would not be able to do anything to the other party. He had no choice but to admit that the current Fog City was definitely the #1 power in the divine world. If he wanted to take revenge, he could only rely on his father, Empyrean Thunder Punishment. Don't worry. Empyrean Thunder Punishment indifferently said. There was no anger in his voice at all. Then, the Thunder Punishment exalted celestial turned around. His hawk-like eyes looked to Zhou Hua. With the descent of the exalted celestial mountain this time around, your father and I have also been restricted greatly. Father. Hearing what the Thunder Punishment exalted celestial said, Zhou Hua felt a burst of pain. The Thunder Punishment exalted celestial's gaze was clear and cold. He said indifferently, there is no need for you to be in too much pain. Those that have died should just die. Those that are still alive should still be alive. You still have a son now. Zhou Xian's generation still has many descendants. Zhou Hua restrained his emotions and stood respectfully to the side. Now that the exalted celestial mountain has descended, regardless of whether it is me or the other exalted celestials, none of us are allowed to act as we wish. Now, I shall allow that Qin Yu to be free and unfettered for several tens of years. A cold light flashed through the Thunder Punishment exalted celestial's hawk-like eyes. When the new exalted celestial is born, it will be the time for my origin sin sword to judge his crimes. Although the Thunder Punishment exalted celestial was an exalted celestial, he still had some concerns in his heart. His third son, Zhou Yan, was also known as Zhou Wulian. He was the son that the Thunder Punishment exalted celestial was extremely fond of. Zhou Wulian's death had caused the Thunder Punishment exalted celestial to hate Qin Yu to the bones. Merely, his eldest martial brother, the Floating Feathers exalted celestial's words were still in his ears. Junior brother, according to the rules, from the time when the exalted celestial mountain descends until the new exalted celestial is born, you only have a single opportunity to attack. As for that opportunity, you've already promised to give it to Zhang Fan. Now that the exalted celestial mountain has already descended, if you were to attack Qin Yu now, you would be violating the rules. In that case, I can only represent my master and carry out the rules of the heavens and directly obliterate you. Obliterate. Directly obliterate. Just thinking about it, the Thunder Punishment exalted celestial's heart started to tremble. The Floating Feathers exalted celestial was never one to joke around. The Thunder Punishment exalted celestial knew this very well. He was extremely certain that if he were to truly attack Qin Yu, then the Floating Feathers exalted celestial would likely kill him before he could even kill Qin Yu. Whether or not the Floating Feathers exalted celestial possessed the ability to kill him, the Thunder Punishment exalted celestial did not doubt this at all. We can only wait until the new exalted celestial is born. The Thunder Punishment exalted celestial narrowed his eyes. The red mole between his brows became even brighter and more beautiful. The day when the new exalted celestial is born is the day Qin Yu dies. Actually, the thunder punishment exalted celestial had another opportunity to take care of Qin Yu. It was the time when Zhang Fan requested his help. When Zhang Fan requested his help, if Qin Yu were to coincidentally go to seize the treasure at that time, then he would have a reason to openly kill Qin Yu. Merely, if Qin Yu were to not go to seize the treasure and instead stay in the fog city peacefully, then he, the thunder punishment exalted celestial, would not have a reason to kill Qin Yu. Fog City. Inside the purple mystic mansion. On top of the vast and mighty inner lake with a circumference of 100 miles, numerous pavilions were located on the surface of the lake. A winding path connected the pavilions and ran through the entire inner lake. Qin Yu and Zhang Li were slowly walking on this path and looking at the surging lake water. It had already been a year or two since the battle for the Back Earth Seal. In these 2 years, Qin Yu had lived a very comfortable life. "Brother Yu, how come I haven't seen Xiao Hei in these past couple months?" Zhang Li asked in a slightly puzzled manner. In the Purple Mystic Mansion, Qin Yu would frequently be together with Xiao Hei and Hou Fei. Zhang Li would also frequently be together with Bai Ling and Zi Xia. Thus, Zhang Li would also frequently see Hou Fei and Kuro. However, in recent days, Zhang Li had never seen Kuro. "Oh, you're talking about Xiao Hei?" Qin Yu couldn't help but recall the scene from several months ago. At that time, Qin Yu was chatting with Kuro and Hou Fei about the various divine kings of the divine realm. However, Kuro suddenly stopped talking. When Qin Yu and Hou Fei looked at Kuro in puzzlement, Kuro was startled for a moment. Then, he immediately said to Qin Yu and Hou Fei, "Big brother monkey, as I said earlier, I seem to have comprehended something. I'm preparing to go into seclusion immediately." After saying that, Kuro didn't waste any time. With a movement of his body, he disappeared before Qin Yu and Hou Fei's eyes. "Lier, I think Xiao Hei must have comprehended something. That's why he's going into seclusion. Who knows, Xiao Hei might be able to reach the divine king realm this time," Qin Yu said with a smile. Zhang Li nodded. Xiao Shuang is here." Zhang Li suddenly saw that in a pavilion far away, Qin Shuang was jumping up and down while shouting loudly, "Father, mother, father, mother." This Qin Shuang was shouting happily and running very fast. When Zhang Li saw her son, she couldn't help but smile so brightly that her eyes narrowed. She immediately walked over happily. Qin Yu also smiled and walked over. However, after taking 2 steps, Qin Yu's expression changed. "Lier!" Qin Yu suddenly shouted. Zhang Li couldn't help but turn her head to look at Qin Yu in surprise. Her eyes were filled with puzzlement. Qin Yu raised his eyebrows and smiled strangely. "Lier, it seems that I will have to go into seclusion for 10 days to half a month." "Seclusion? Brother Yu, you are going into seclusion?" Zhang Li was puzzled. "The second layer of the Neo-verse is about to be completed," Qin Yu said with a smile. When Zhang Li heard this, she couldn't help but reveal a look of joy. "Ah, that's great. Brother Yu, once the second layer of the Neo-verse is completed, how much will your power increase?" Zhang Li wasn't too sure about this. "I will tell you when I return. I will go to the Neo-verse first," Qin Yu said. "Okay." Zhang Li picked up Qin Shuang, who had already run over, and nodded at Qin Yu. "Father, are you leaving?" Qin Shuang's black eyes looked at Qin Yu with confusion. Qin Yu smiled and patted Qin Shuang's head. "In 10 days to half a month, I will be back." After that, Qin Yu looked at Zhang Li. Then, he disappeared from the inner lake. Chapter 670. The First Layer of the Mortal Realms Universe. The first layer of the immortal, devil and demon realms energy level. Now, in this vast universe, the first and second levels had been perfected. Countless spaces transmitted the power of space and time to each other. The power of the origin of the universe is also in different spaces. Chi, endless grand mist energy continued to fuse into the new universe from the grand mist space. At the very top of the new universe, the new divine world also began to slowly evolve. This was the final level. When the new divine world was completed, the new universe could be considered to have reached large success. Qin Yu, who was sitting cross-legged in space, opened his eyes and frowned slightly. With a thought, Qin Yu disappeared from the space and returned to the Purple Mystic Mansion in the Divine World's Fog City. Qin Yu stood on the surface of the Purple Mystic Mansion's inner lake. "Freeze," Qin Yu said softly. With Qin Yu as the center, the flow of time within a radius of a few kilometers seemed to come to a sudden halt. The undulating waters of the lake became still. The surrounding sounds all disappeared. A silent world, a silent world. Except for Qin Yu, everything in this small area was still. I've succeeded in the second layer of the cosmos. In this divine realm, I am finally able to use time stop. Qin Yu was also slightly excited. In the new cosmos, Qin Yu was the ruler. In the God realm, Qin Yu was not invincible. Time stop. The time stop I used was different from the time stop used by the Azura God King and Uncle Lon. Qin Yu had a smile on his face. Qin Yu's time stop used the Neoverse time power. Spatial pressure is useless against God Kings who have comprehended the laws of space. The same principle applies to God Kings who have comprehended time stop. Time stop won't have much of an effect either. Qin Yu was very clear. Regardless of whether it was Zhonglon, the Azura God King or the Blood Sea Queen, their time stop was only effective against the 8 great sage emperors and the other God Kings. However, Zhonglon was unable to use his time stop to stop the Azura God King. This was because the 3 of them had all comprehended time stop. After comprehending this move, it was naturally ineffective against them. They are not afraid of the time stop that originated from the temporal laws of the Divine Realms universe, but they are afraid of my time stop. Qin Yu grew even more confident. Once he used time stop, even the Azura God King and the Blood Sea Queen would not be able to move in the slightest. The Azura God King and the Blood Sea Queen would not be able to use their comprehension of the temporal laws to break through this attack. They could only force their way through. It would take a lot of time to break through with brute force. That amount of time was enough for Qin Yu to kill them all. The Blood Sea Queen is capable of transforming into her true form. However, with time stop, you simply do not have the opportunity to transform into your true form. Qin Yu smiled indifferently. Now that he was able to use time stop, Qin Yu's strength had definitely surpassed that of the Azura God King and the Blood Sea Queen. In the entire divine realm, likely, only the exalted celestials were capable of causing Qin Yu to fear them. "Brother Yu," Zhong Li's voice suddenly sounded from afar. Qin Yu turned around to look. He saw that Zhong Li was gathered together with Qin Shuang, Qin Si and some others on the shore of the inner lake. Qin Yu knew that those people were all his relatives, brothers and friends. In order to protect one's relatives and friends, one must possess sufficient strength. The stronger one was, the more peaceful and happy one would be. Time passed. In a blink of an eye, 7 or 8 years had passed. However, Kuro was still in seclusion training. After such a long time, the people of the Purple Mystic Mansion started to pay attention to the exalted Celestial Mountain. Many people of the Purple Mystic Mansion would frequently go to the shore of the inner lake to look at the water screen. Through the water screen, they were carefully looking at the situation on the exalted Celestial Mountain. According to the time, the All-People Seal ought to be about to appear. On the exalted Celestial Mountain. Currently, the number of God Kings on the exalted Celestial Mountain was much less than when the exalted Celestial Mountain had descended. The Azura God King and Zhonglan had killed over 10 God Kings in their 2 ruthless attacks. Currently, there were only 20+ God Kings here. Brother Zhong Fan, do we not need to discuss how to contest for the All-People Seal? Shun Tuyen walked over to Zhong Fan and asked via Divine Awareness voice transmission. Shun Tuyen possessed a very good relationship with Zhong Fan. Last time, Zhong Fan had asked Shun Tuyen and Zhou Hua to help him contest for the Back Earth Seal. Furthermore, he had made a lot of plans. However, this time around, Zhong Fan had actually not sought out Shun Tuyen to discuss the matter. Zhang Fan, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, opened his eyes. Brother Shintu, there is no need for you to do anything this time around. You can just quietly watch from the side. Zhang Fan said with a smile. Zhang Fan's smile was tranquil and dull. However, his dull tone contained absolute confidence. In Zhang Fan's eyes, that all-people seal was already his. Brother Zhang, you're this confident? Shintu Yen looked to Zhang Fan with a smile. Zhang Fan smiled mysteriously. He did not bother to explain. Brother Shintu, let's quietly wait for the birth of the all-people seal. As he said that, Zhang Fan's gaze was cast toward the spiritual treasure origin cauldron in the middle of the ravine. The all-people seal is definitely mine. Zhang Fan's voice was that resolute. For the sake of the all-people seal, how much had he, Zhang Fan, given up? For the sake of obtaining the all-people seal with 100% certainty, he had given up his daughter and his brotherly affection. That Qin Yu, who might have been his helper, had also been pushed to the opposite side by him. All of this was because he had obtained the help of the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial. After giving up so much, although Zhang Fan was slightly unreconciled, if Zhang Fan were to make a choice again, he would still make the same choice. That was because the Exalted Celestials were absolutely foolproof. Zhang Fan swept his gaze over the surrounding sage emperors and god kings. He displayed a cold smile on his face. The majority of these god kings were all greedy for the all-people seal. They all wanted to be like the unfettered god king from back then and become the new exalted celestial. In order to become the new exalted celestial, those god kings were all willing to take risks. None of you will be able to win against me, Zhang Fan said softly in his heart. The Blood Sea Queen was proudly standing at the corner of the ravine. Regardless of which god king it was, the Blood Sea Queen did not bother to pay attention to them. I am Duanmu Yun. You might be. The utmost South Sage Emperor Duanmu Yun walked over with a smile on his face. Duanmu Yun also possessed ambitions for the all-people seal. From his point of view, now that Zhonglan and the Azura God King were both not present, he possessed a very large possibility of obtaining the all-people seal. Humph. The Blood Sea Queen took a glance at Duanmu Yun. She did not say anything. Duanmu Yun's eyelids jumped. He laughed dryly and then tactfully left. However, Duanmu Yun remembered this Blood Sea Queen in his heart. To dare to treat him like this, she at least possessed sufficient strength. All people seal. The Blood Sea Queen looked to the spiritual treasure origin cauldron. Her eyes were filled with anticipation. Unfettered, last time you became an exalted celestial. This time, it should be my turn. It had been over 10 years since the last time the Back Earth seal appeared. Currently, the all-people seal from the spiritual treasure origin cauldron could appear at any moment. Thus, none of the god kings dared to lower their guard. In terms of being the most relaxed, it would likely be Zhang Fan. There were this many god kings inside the exalted celestial mountain. However, outside the exalted celestial mountain, there was also a god king quietly waiting. If my guess is correct, among the 3 people seals, this all-people seal ought to contain the majority of the contents of Time Reversal. The Azura God King Luo Fan stood on a small boat and looked to the entrance of the relief sculpture tunnel. After training for all these years, Luo Fan's greatest desire was likely to be to become the utmost exalted celestial. Time passed by day after day. The 20-plus God Kings inside the Exalted Celestial Mountain and the God King outside the Exalted Celestial Mountain were all quietly waiting. After about half a year had passed, boom! All of a sudden, countless claps of thunder rumbled in the sky, echoing throughout the entire God realm. What's going on? The Azura God King Luo Fan raised his head in confusion. At the same time, he spread his divine awareness in all directions. Many of the God Kings on the Exalted Celestial Mountain also heard the rumbling thunder. For example, Duanmu Yun, Jiang Xing and the other God Kings directly walked out of the relief sculpture tunnel. Even Zhang Fan walked out of the relief sculpture tunnel. Oh, brother Luo Fan. Zhang Fan, who walked out of the relief sculpture tunnel, saw the Azura God King Luo Fan and greeted him with a smile. Zhang Fan did not care about Luo Fan's existence in the slightest. Luo Fan also slightly nodded to Zhang Fan. Brother Zhang Fan, look at this thunder. Furthermore, there are countless seven-colored clouds floating in the sky above the fog city. Could it be that another god king has appeared in this fog city? Zhang Fan's divine awareness also instantly discovered that there were seven-colored clouds floating in the sky above the fog city. Lightning filled the sky. In the sky above the fog city, this newly born god king is naturally from the fog city. Zhang Fan said very indifferently. Although his tone was indifferent, Zhang Fan's heart violently twitched. The strength of this fog city was truly too powerful. When the thunder gradually disappeared, the god kings all prepared to enter the relief sculpture tunnel and return to the exalted celestial mountain. However, right at this moment, rumble, the entire divine realm was once again filled with the sound of thunder. This. Many of the god kings were startled. Generally, the divine realm would only give birth to a god king after a very long period of time. However now, it seemed that another god king had been born. The time when the two god kings were born was actually almost the same. At this moment, even the close to 10 god kings that had stayed in the exalted celestial mountain the entire time also came out. 2 god kings. In a short period of time, 2 god kings were actually born. This seems to be the first time since the birth of the divine realm. Shun Tuyen exclaimed in admiration. 2 god kings were born. The first one is from the fog city. As for the second one, it's actually from the thunder punishment city. Duanmu Yun displayed an expression of shock. These god kings immediately discovered that an endless amount of 7-colored clouds had also appeared in the sky above the thunder punishment city. Brother Zhou Hua, congratulations. Duanmu Yun immediately turned around and cupped his hands toward Zhou Hua with a smile on his face. Zhou Hua was also slightly stunned. Soon after, he revealed an expression of pleasant surprise. Then, he cupped his hands toward the surrounding god kings and said, "Everyone, I will be returning first." After Zhou Hua finished saying those words, he did not bother to waste any more time. With a teleportation, he disappeared from the line of sight of the god kings. Inside the Thunder Punishment City. Inside the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial's secluded little courtyard. At this moment, Zhou Xian was present. Haha, Xian, good. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial, who used to be cold and callous, had a joyous expression on his face. He was laughing heartily. Zhou Xian stood to the side with a light smile on his face. Last time, Zhou Xian had decided to enter closed-door training and not come out until he reached the God King level. Never did he expect that, after training for so many years, he would actually really reach the God King level. However, after coming out, Zhou Xian came to know that 3 of the 4 great God Kings of the Thunder Punishment City had died. Zhou Xian did not understand why his grandfather did not kill Qin Yu for revenge. Grandfather, that Qin Yu. It's enough. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial extended his hand to stop Zhou Xian. During the time when the Exalted Celestial Mountain descends, Grandfather is also unable to casually attack. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial was extremely fond of Zhou Xian. Among all the descendants of the Zhou clan, the ones that the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial truly liked were Zhou Wulian and Zhou Xian. That was because Zhou Xian was his first grandson. When Zhou Xian was born, he had given Zhou Xian a talisman seal that he had spent a great amount of effort to craft. That talisman seal was capable of helping Zhou Xian block the attacks of first-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasures. Merely from this, one could tell how much the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial liked Zhou Xian. Lord Father. Zhou Hua walked in from the courtyard. Once he entered, he immediately shouted respectfully. However, Zhou Hua had a joyous expression on his face. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial smiled and nodded. Right now is the important time for the birth of the All-People Seal. You actually also came back. However, that's nothing much. This All-People Seal belongs to Zhang Fan. Zhou Hua also nodded. Even the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial was going to personally attack. Who could possibly stop the thunder punishment, exalted celestial? This all-people seal would naturally belong to Zhong Fan. Grandfather, at the time when I reached the God King level, there seemed to be another person that had also become a God King. It was someone from the Fog City. Grandfather, do you know who it was? Zhou Xian asked. Zhou Xian possessed an intense curiosity toward the person that had become a God King at the same time as him. The thunder punishment, exalted celestial's expression slightly sunk. He coldly humphed and said, "It's that Qin Yu's brother, Kuro." Kuro? Zhou Xian immediately remembered. He knew about Qin Yu very well. He knew that Kuro was also the same as Qin Yu, someone who had cultivated step by step from the mortal realm. Even this Qin Yu's brother, a mongrel bird, has such a fast cultivation speed. Zhou Xian was unable to refrain himself from feeling even more jealousy. The thunder punishment, exalted celestial, suddenly raised his brows. He seemed to have sensed something. The all-people seal is about to be born. The thunder punishment, exalted celestial, said in surprise. It's about to be born? Zhou Hua and Zhou Xian were both startled. After that, the two of them clasped their hands to the thunder punishment, exalted celestial, and then took their leave. After that, the two of them directly left the courtyard and teleported to the exalted celestial mountain. Chapter 671. Within the purple mystic mansion, the 100-mile-wide lake surface undulated as it gently slapped against the shore. On the lakeside, more than 100 people of the Qin clan sat around the table casually. Initially, this group of people were chatting and laughing with each other, but suddenly, the spiritual treasure origin cauldron has lit up. Qin Si's surprised voice rang out. Immediately, over 100 people turned their heads to look at the water screen in the sky. Everyone was unable to take their eyes off it and held their breaths. This is the last exciting show. Qin Yu smiled as he sipped his tea and watched. This time around, none of the God Kings from the Fog City had gone. That was because Zhang Lan had already vowed that he would no longer fight for the all-people seal. Zhang Lan did not go. The God King of Deaths Chulin and Yi Feng also did not go. At this moment, Qin Yu, Zhang Li, Kuro, Zhang Lan, Chulin and Yi Feng, this group of God Kings from the Fog City, were all drinking tea and watching the show through the water screen. The atmosphere in Fog City was relaxed, but at this moment, the atmosphere in Exalted Celestial Mountain was extremely tense. Swish! Two figures appeared out of thin air outside the Exalted Celestial Mountain's relief sculpture tunnel. They were precisely the Northwest Sage Emperor, Zhou Hua, and Zhou Xian, who had just become a God King. Once the two of them appeared, they immediately noticed the Azura God King Luo Fan, who was not far away. Zhou Hua and Zhou Xian looked at each other with a smile in their eyes. They all knew very well that the Azura God King Luo Fan was destined to fail this time around. If the thunder punishment, exalted celestial, were to act, who could possibly stop him? The all-people seal was definitely going to be Zhong Fan's. Oh! The Azura God King also noticed this pair of father and son. He couldn't help but chuckle. Zhou Hua and Zhou Xian directly entered the relief sculpture tunnel. After entering the relief sculpture tunnel, the two of them ran at an extremely fast speed. This relief sculpture tunnel was also very strange. It was impossible to teleport or fly. Xian, after we enter the Exalted Celestial Mountain, you are to obediently stay beside me and brother Zhong Fan. Do not go and fight for the all-people seal. Just let those people fight for the all-people seal for a while. Zhou Hua instructed. I understand. Zhou Xian also had a smile on his face. When grandfather takes action, what kind of expression will those godly kings, who originally thought they would obtain the all-people seal, have? I'm looking forward to it. Zhou Hua also laughed. Although the father and son were talking, their speed was not slow at all. In an instant, they had entered the Exalted Celestial Mountain. When they entered the Exalted Celestial Mountain, there just so happened to be a sage emperor who used spatial freezing. Wang, although Zhou Hua and Zhou Xian were at the foot of the Exalted Celestial Mountain, they were still able to see a bright light in the middle of the valley. Clearly, the numinous treasure origin cauldron had lit up. In the canyon, the Blood Sea Queen, Ma Tian, and several other hidden god kings, several god kings from the Ascender faction, as well as more than 10 god kings from the 8 great divine families led by the 8 great sage emperors. When the spiritual treasure origin cauldron lit up, the ones who reacted the fastest were 2 groups of people, all people seal. Duanmu Yun's eyes lit up and he took the lead to soar into the sky. Mu Qin and Tang Lon followed closely behind. The 3 of them did not hesitate at all as they directly flew towards the spiritual treasure origin cauldron. Other than that, there was also Huang Fu Yu and Pu Tai Hong. When Huang Fu Yu and Pu Tai Hong saw the bright light above the spiritual treasure origin cauldron, they too rushed up without hesitation. Fight, fight. Zhang Fan was still calmly standing on the flat ground of the canyon. He merely raised his head and looked at the various sage emperors that had soared into the sky to fight for the all-people seal. It was so much so that Zhang Fan even added more power and used spatial freezing to increase the degree of spatial freezing. Whoosh! Suddenly, a golden ray of light soared into the sky from the spiritual treasure origin cauldron. Right after that golden ray of light came out from the spiritual treasure origin cauldron, it naturally emitted a boundless oppressive aura. Merely by sensing its aura, it was clearly superior to the blue sky seal and the back earth seal. It would seem that the 8 great sage emperors are not united. Let's fight first. I'll act when both sides are seriously injured. The Blood Sea Queen was calmly watching this scene from the side. She was not worried at all. In the entire exalted celestial mountain, there was not a single god king that could cause her to fear. As long as the 8 great sage emperors were not united and fought until both sides were seriously injured, it would be even easier for her, the Blood Sea Queen, to obtain the all-people seal. The golden ray of light was rapidly shot out. Duanmu Yun's figure moved. He was actually the first to approach that golden ray of light. Duanmu Yun looked at the all-people seal before him. His gaze was blazing. The source energy of the light origin spiritual pearl above his head was immediately agitated. Duanmu Yun's hand was naturally covered with a layer of source energy. He formed a claw with his hand and directly grabbed at the golden ray of light. Bang! Duanmu Yun felt a burst of intense vibration in his palm. He only managed to calm down after that. Duanmu Yun only had the time to take a glance at his palm. It was a golden seal. There were 3 very special characters on it. He did not recognize those characters at all. However, when he saw those 3 characters, the words "All People Seal" naturally appeared in his mind. Brother Duanmu, be careful. Mu Qin shouted through divine awareness voice transmission. Duanmu Yun immediately grew alert. He saw an enormous golden hand directly grabbing at his hand. Duanmu Yun was immediately able to tell that the enormous golden hand was the hand formed by the Huangfu clan's metal source energy. Brother Huangfu, this all-people seal is mine. You should give up on it. Duanmu Yun smiled and said via voice transmission. He immediately rushed toward the foot of the exalted celestial mountain. Humph, Brother Duanmu, it's still too early to say who the all-people seal is. Huang Fu Yu and Pu Tai Hong immediately caught up to him. Mu Qin and Tang Lan also chased after Huang Fu Yu and Pu Tai Hong from behind. 5 rays of light rapidly flew toward the foot of the exalted celestial mountain. After these 5 rays of light, the god kings from the Ascender powers, the hidden god kings, Jiang Xing, Duanmu Yu and many other god kings who were watching also rapidly chased after them. You want to catch up to me with merely speed? We 8 great sage emperors are about the same. Duanmu Yun paid attention to Huang Fu Yu behind him with his divine awareness. He had a confident smile on his face. The speed of the 8 great sage emperors was about the same. Huang Fu Yu was simply unable to catch up to him. However, right when Duanmu Yun was rapidly flying toward the entrance of the relief sculpture tunnel at the foot of the exalted celestial mountain, he suddenly discovered that 2 people were flying toward him. Duanmu Yun instantly recognized them. Zhou Hua, not good. What a cunning Zhang Fan. He actually sent people to intercept me here. Duanmu Yun's heart immediately tightened. Duanmu Yun and Huang Fu Yu both knew that Zhang Fan, Zhou Hua and Shen Tian belonged to the same faction. Earlier, when the all-people seal appeared, that Zhang Fan actually did not go and fight for it. Duanmu Yun had been confused the entire time. At this moment, when he saw Zhou Hua flying toward him from below, he immediately came to a realization. "Zhou Hua, you think you can stop me?" Duanmu Yun shouted angrily via divine awareness voice transmission. Zhou Hua was confused by this angry shout through divine sense voice transmission. "Stop him!" Zhou Hua and Zhou Xian had flown back from below so that they could watch the scene of others fighting over the all-people seal. Never had they expected that they would be confused by this Duanmu Yun. However, Zhou Hua's reaction was also very fast. "Xian, let's avoid him." Zhou Hua immediately said to Zhou Xian via divine awareness voice transmission. "Yes, father." Zhou Xian also knew his father's intention. Zhou Hua and Zhou Xian streaked across the sky in an arc and directly turned to the side to avoid Duanmu Yun. They allowed Duanmu Yun to continue to fly downward. They did not stop him at all. Duanmu Yun was confused. However, although he was confused, he still continued to rapidly fly downward. Zhou Hua and Zhou Xian immediately saw Zhang Fan, Shen Tian and them who were not in a hurry to fly. Zhou Hua immediately joined Zhang Fan. Strange, could it be that this Huang Fuyu is planning to allow Duanmu Yun to escape like this? Zhang Fan said with a light smile. "I'm afraid that Huang Fuyu had thought that we would stop him earlier. Thus, he did not truly attack." Zhou Hua thought for a moment and said. Zhang Fan also nodded in agreement with what Zhou Hua said. Indeed. Huang Fuyu had already discovered Zhou Hua flying over from below. He had thought that Zhou Hua would try to stop him. However, unexpectedly, Zhou Hua did not try to stop him and instead moved to the side. This Duanmu Yun couldn't possibly have thought that he would be able to fly away so easily, right? Immediately after, with an intention from Huang Fuyu, whoosh, 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 whoosh. In a single breath, over 100 golden rays of light were shot toward Duanmu Yun. Each and every golden ray of light contained the gold origin energy. Their attack power was extremely astonishing. No matter what, this Duanmu Yun would not allow himself to be attacked by the gold origin energy. Huff! The white light on the surface of Duanmu Yun's body started to shine brightly. The light origin energy formed a protective layer around his body. At the same time, Duanmu Yun was rapidly drifting and dodging the numerous golden rays of light. Even if one or two of the attacks were to reach him, he would still be able to block them with his defense. However, the over 100 golden rays of light that were dodged by Duanmu Yun suddenly turned into over 100 golden ribbons. These over 100 golden ribbons actually formed an enormous golden net. The enormous golden net just so happened to block Duanmu Yun's path. Not good. What a cunning Huang Fuyu! When Duanmu Yun saw the golden net, he immediately realized that he would not be able to escape by flying. The golden net could not be broken through by attacks alone. Furthermore, if he wanted to dodge to the side, how could his flying speed possibly compare to the golden net formed by the origin energy? Duanmu Yun stopped. "Brother Huangfu, are you truly forcing me to attack you?" shouted Duanmu Yun via divine awareness voice transmission. Immediately after, several tens of white-colored whips of light appeared in his hand. Each of the whips of light were over 100 meters long and as thick as an arm. The several tens of white-colored whips of light immediately lashed toward Huang Fuyu. Faced with this attack, Huang Fuyu's expression changed. Golden origin energy immediately appeared on the surface of his body as he rapidly dodged the whips of light. However, those whips of light were over 100 meters long. With several tens of whips lashing out at the same time, how could he possibly dodge them? The whips of light were so random and ruthless. As for Huang Fuyu, it was as if he was hiding in a golden eggshell as he allowed the whips of light to strike him. Bang! 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 A series of collisions between the light origin energy and the metal origin energy sounded. Fortunately, the metal origin energy was more proficient in defense. Faced with the several tens of whips of light, it only caused the blood in its body to tremble. Duanmu Yun put away the whips of light. Brother Huangfu, you also wish to contend against me? Duanmu Yun had a face filled with confidence. Huff, huff, huff. At this moment, the god kings behind all flew over. Mu Qin and Tang Lan, the two great god kings, flew over to Duanmu Yun's side. Putai Hong also flew over to Duanmu Yun's side. The other sage emperors and god kings all flew to the side and quietly watched the show. As for the Blood Sea Queen, who had a cold expression the entire time, she was also quietly standing to the side. The sage emperors present simply did not know that this Blood Sea Queen was also capable of time stop. After all, the Blood Sea Queen had never used this technique before them before. Brother Mu Qin and sister Tang Lan, it is extremely easy for me to contain the two of you. Thus, I am naturally able to easily leave. Duanmu Yun said as he looked to Huangfu Yu. Huangfu Yu and Putai Hong slightly frowned. They only had 2 people. However, Duanmu Yun had 3 people. Brother Zhang Fan. Huangfu Yu looked to Zhang Fan. However, right when he opened his mouth, Zhang Fan smiled and said, "While you all are competing, I merely need to watch from the side. There is no need for you all to involve me." Huangfu Yu was immediately speechless. These words were too absolute. It was clear that Zhang Fan was not going to interfere. As for the hidden god kings and ascender god kings who had experienced the massacre of the Azura god king and Zhang Fan twice in succession, they all did not rashly interfere. They all knew that unless it was the best opportunity, they would definitely not interfere. Survival was the most important. Huangfu Yu looked to Duanmu Yun. He then looked to Tang Lan and Mu Qin, who stood beside Duanmu Yun. Tang Lan controlled the water origin energy. Mu Qin controlled the wood origin energy. The two of them were both people who specialized in defense and trapping others. These 2 people were definitely capable of easily containing Huangfu Yu and Putai Hong. Brother Duanmu, you should leave. I'll watch you leave. I do not believe that you'll be able to safely return to the Light Lens City. Remember, there's still an Azura God King outside. Huangfu Yu humphed and said, "Brother Huangfu, there's no need for you to worry about me. I have my own methods." Duanmu Yun lightly laughed. He then took a glance at the surrounding God Kings. In the end, he smiled and flew toward the foot of the exalted celestial mountain. Duanmu Yun was very proud of himself. He was actually able to leave with the all-people seal so easily. They actually didn't fight. Truly disappointing. The Blood Sea Queen muttered to herself. At this moment, the Blood Sea Queen who had been at the corner finally acted. With a wave of her sleeve, a crimson-colored wave of water surged toward Duanmu Yun. The speed of that wave of water was extremely fast. In a blink of an eye, it had arrived before Duanmu Yun. Humph. Duanmu Yun was about to utilize his cosmic origin energy. However, he suddenly discovered, other than that crimson-colored wave of water that could move, the surrounding airflow had all stopped. Even he himself was unable to move. It was as if his cosmic origin energy had been restricted and was unable to move. Time stop. Duanmu Yun's complexion immediately turned pale. It was so pale that there was no trace of blood. Chapter 672. How could someone use time stop? That's impossible. Neither Zhang Lan nor the Azura God King are here. Duanmu Yun was extremely anxious. He was extremely terrified. Time stop had only trapped him. He was merely a sage emperor. If the 8 great sage emperors were to join hands, they would definitely be able to use their powerful origin energy to forcibly break apart time stop. However, if he wanted to break apart time stop by himself, it would take him a long time. Buzz. The white spiritual pearl above Duanmu Yun's head was emitting waves of light. It was faintly expanding. However, this light seemed to have received an enormous restriction and was unable to expand. Under time stop, the light origin energy had completely stopped flowing. What's going on? Why is Duanmu Yun not moving? Zhang Fan, Zhou Hua, Huang Fuyu and a large group of god kings were confused. Right at the moment when they were confused, a crimson figure arrived before Duanmu Yun in a blink of an eye. Once Duanmu Yun saw the Blood Sea Queen, he immediately recognized her to be that cold and detached god king who ignored everyone. No, no! Duanmu Yun roared in his heart. However, on the surface, he was unable to move in the slightest. He was unable to even speak. The Blood Sea Queen held a blood trident in her hand and ruthlessly pierced it toward Duanmu Yun's head. That was because the light origin energy was unable to flow due to time stop. Thus, Duanmu Yun did not have any defense on his body. PFFF. The blood trident directly pierced into Duanmu Yun's head. Blood burst forth. Jiang Fan, Zhou Hua, Huang Fuyu and a large group of god kings in the distance were all stunned. They were all stunned. From the moment Duanmu Yun's body stopped moving to the moment the Blood Sea Queen attacked, it was merely a blink of an eye. They were unable to react at all. This spiritual pearl even has a defense against the soul. The Blood Sea Queen exclaimed in surprise. When the blood trident pierced into Duanmu Yun's head and the Blood Sea Queen's special power attacked Duanmu Yun's soul, it was actually blocked by a layer of origin energy that covered Duanmu Yun's soul. Puchi. The blood trident ruthlessly pierced into Duanmu Yun's soul. In an instant, the blood trident pierced into Duanmu Yun's soul over 100 times. Under the effect of time stop, the origin energy stopped flowing. Naturally, the origin energy that was used to defend the soul was no longer supported by the light origin spirit pearl. In a blink of an eye, the blood trident tore apart Duanmu Yun's soul and shattered his true spirit. How is this possible? At the moment when her true spirit was shattered, Duanmu Yun still felt disbelief in her heart. He, one of the God King 8 great sage emperors, was actually going to die. The sage emperor who had never fallen since the birth of the god realm was about to fall today. Ha 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 ha. The Blood Sea Queen pulled out her blood trident. As for the all-people seal in her hand, she started to laugh heartily. After Duanmu Yun died, the Blood Sea Queen naturally removed her time stop. Duanmu Yun's corpse immediately fell powerlessly from the sky. However, the white, light origin spiritual pearl suddenly began to shine brightly. Wang, the light source spiritual pearl, which had already lost its owner, actually shone at an unprecedented level. However, its trembling seemed to be wailing, whining for the death of its master. The utmost South Sage Emperor, Duanmu Yun, has died. Silence, silence. All of the God Kings went silent. Perhaps even the death of the Azura God King wouldn't shock everyone like this. That was because an expert of the Azura God King's level had already died in the battle of the exalted celestial mountain. However, the 8 great sage emperors that had existed since the birth of the God realm had always existed. As for the 8 great sage emperors who knew of their true responsibilities, they all knew that they were in charge of the origin energy of the entire cosmos. They were in charge of the stable operation of the entire cosmos. They believed that they would never fall. Although theoretically, people like the Azura God King and Zhonglan who were capable of using time stop would be able to kill 1 or 2 of them. However, that was only in theory. In reality, no sage emperor had ever fallen. Ever since the descent of the exalted celestial mountain, so many god kings had died. However, the sage emperors had been living well the entire time. The sage emperors all believed that nothing would happen to them. However, just now, the utmost South Sage Emperor, Duanmu Yun, had died. Duanmu Yun died? Zhou Hua said in a daze. Beside him, Jiang Fan, Shun Tian and them were also in a state of confusion. This was truly too shocking to them. The 8 great sage emperors, the 8 great sage emperors that had always existed, one of them had actually died. Father. Suddenly, a mournful voice sounded. The voice was so mournful that it caused one's heart to tremble. Duanmu Yu, who had been standing to the side the entire time and had never gone to fight for the treasures, started to tremble in pain. His eyes had turned red as he firmly stared at the Death Queen. Big brother. Duanmu Ruffing also shouted loudly. During the last massacre by the Azura God King, a God King of the Light Lens City, Duanmu Lu, had died. Unexpectedly, not long after that, the head of the Light Lens city, Duanmu Yun, had also died. Currently, the only god kings left in the Light Lens city were a woman, Duanmu Rufeng, and Duanmu Yu, who had become a god king not long ago. Haha, the 8 great clan protection spiritual treasures. Today, I shall obtain one of them. The Blood Sea Queen laughed loudly. Complacently, she extended her hand toward the Light Source spiritual pearl. The current Blood Sea Queen possessed sufficient confidence. However, when the Blood Sea Queen tried to grab it, the origin energy of the White Light Source spiritual pearl actually started to surge violently. An irresistible power directly forced the Blood Sea Queen to the side, causing her to be unable to approach the Light Source spiritual pearl. Amen. An ownerless object is still resisting? The Blood Sea Queen Shui Yun was surprised. Whoosh! After that, the Light Source spiritual pearl turned into a ray of light and flew toward Duanmu Rufeng. As if it possessed intelligence, the Light Source spiritual pearl directly flew before Duanmu Rufeng. A drop of blood also floated out from Duanmu Rufeng's finger. After the Light Source spiritual pearl absorbed this drop of blood, it started to shine faintly. It actually directly floated above Duanmu Rufeng's head. The Light Source spiritual pearl immediately started to emit rays of light. Like a belt of light, it spread out. The surging origin energy that it emitted was not at all inferior to Duanmu Yun's. The new utmost South Sage Emperor, Duanmu Rufeng. Cries of surprise filled the purple mystic mansion. She completely refined it this easily? Qin Yu was also a bit surprised. In order to refine a Grand Mist spiritual treasure, it would generally require a very long time. However, this Light Source spiritual pearl was actually refined by Duanmu Rufeng in a blink of an eye. After all, if she didn't completely refine it, she would definitely not be able to use this much origin energy. This is very normal, Zhang Lon said with a smile on his face. Uncle Lon, this shouldn't be the case. Qin Yu looked to Zhang Lon. Zhang Li, Kuro, Zhuochulin, Yi Feng and them all looked to Zhang Lon. Zhang Lon lightly smiled and said, "To be honest, Duanmu Yun's death has shocked me greatly. When the Divine Realm was born, the 8 great clan protection spiritual treasures descended from the heavens. They just so happened to fuse with the bloodlines of the 8 great divine families. These 8 great clan protection spiritual treasures are extremely peculiar. Any one of the spiritual pearls can only be refined and absorbed by those with matching bloodlines. These 8 great clan protection spiritual treasures, without looking at anything else, only look at one's bloodline." Zhang Lon knew about these secrets. Only look at one's bloodline? Qin Yu thought for a moment and then nodded. No wonder when Duanmu Yun died, that ownerless Light Source spiritual pearl would directly fly toward Duanmu Rufeng. Something's amiss. Qin Yu recalled the Fire Origin spiritual pearl that Lin Meng had given to his son. That Fire Origin spiritual pearl was exactly the same as the Shuntu clan's clan protection spiritual treasure, the Fire Origin spiritual pearl. Uncle Lon, Little C's Fire Origin spiritual pearl ought to be exactly the same as the Shinto clan's Fire Origin spiritual pearl, right? Why is it that Little C was able to refine this Fire Origin spiritual pearl? Qin Yu asked. Zhang Lon was slightly startled. He then shook his head and said, "I also do not understand. However, I am extremely certain that the 8 great divine families' clan protection spiritual treasures can only be refined by those with the special bloodlines of the 8 great divine families. It is simply impossible for others to refine them. Although Little C's Fire Origin spiritual pearl is also a Fire Origin spiritual pearl, I reckon that it only looks the same. There should still be some differences between it and the Shuntu clan's clan protection spiritual treasure." Qin Yu's heart moved. Qin Yu thought of his second brother Lin Meng. This Lin Meng had given the Fire Origin spiritual pearl to Qin Si and then, with a wave of his hand, allowed Qin Si to completely refine the Fire Origin spiritual pearl. As this matter involves my mysterious second brother, everything is possible. Qin Yu thought in his heart. When the old sage emperor died, that Light Origin spiritual pearl would choose its own master. Duanmu Rufeng and Duanmu Yu were both god kings. Merely, Duanmu Ruffing had already comprehended time acceleration and was not someone that Duanmu you could compare with. Furthermore, Duanmu Ruffing was from the first generation of the Duanmu clan. She was of the same generation as Duanmu Yun. Her bloodline was also purer than Duanmu Yu's. Zhang Lon said with a smile. It is only natural for the new utmost South Sage Emperor to be Duanmu Ruffing. On the exalted celestial mountain, the Sage Emperors all had gloomy expressions. One by one, they flew toward the Blood Sea Queen. However, the Blood Sea Queen appeared to not have noticed them. She was still standing where she was and merely held on to her blood trident. Her crimson gown and crimson long hair were all fluttering in the wind. "Ha ha, you all want to kill me? Ha ha, how could I, the Blood Sea Queen, possibly fear you all?" The Blood Sea Queen stood in the air. Her voice contained an absolute domineering aura. The Sage Emperors, including the new utmost South Sage Emperor Duanmu Ruffing, all had gloomy expressions. After killing a Sage Emperor, the other Sage Emperors would naturally grieve. "You even dare to kill a Sage Emperor? Blood Sea Queen, today, you shall accompany brother Duanmu Yun in death," Zhou Hua said coldly. The other 7 Sage Emperors all surrounded her. However, the Blood Sea Queen Shui Yun did not appear to be worried at all. She was still standing there. "You all want to kill me to accompany that Duanmu Yun in death? Interesting, interesting." The Blood Sea Queen was high-spirited. Her face was filled with confidence. "Even if I, the Blood Sea Queen, were to die, at the very least 2 or 3 of you Sage Emperors would fall. Zhou Hua, Jiang Fan, Huang Fuyu, who do you all think I should kill?" The Blood Sea Queen asked with a smile on her face. However, the Sage Emperors all felt a chill in their hearts. Earlier, the Blood Sea Queen had easily killed Duanmu Yun. They were all able to guess that. The reason why Duanmu Yun was unable to move was likely because he was hit by Time Stop. Time. Another God King of the deity realm who knew that Time Stop, divine ability. The Sage Emperors had been confused the entire time as to why the Blood Sea Queen did not flee after obtaining the All-People Seal. Could it be that this Blood Sea Queen was truly going to risk her life against them? The Sage Emperors began to feel apprehensive. "Let's not delay anymore. I'll have the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial Act." Zhang Fan directly made a decision in his heart. Senior Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial. Senior Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial. Zhang Fan directly said via voice transmission. Zhang Fan knew very well that the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial's divine awareness had covered the entire Exalted Celestial Mountain the entire time. "Zhang Fan, what is it?" The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial's voice directly sounded in Zhang Fan's mind. Zhang Fan replied respectfully. "Senior Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial, you also know of the current situation. Senior Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial, you should quickly act." He controlled the God Kings inside the Exalted Celestial Mountain as well as the Azura God King outside the Exalted Celestial Mountain. "Senior, you can decide whether or not to kill them, as long as they don't obstruct me." "All right." Empyrean Thunder Punishment replied. "Ha ha. 8 great Sage Emperors. Look at how scared you are. What a bunch of cowards. Do you really think that this queen will fight you to the death? What a joke. Goodbye, everyone." The Blood Sea Queen laughed complacently. Immediately after, boom! A boundless amount of crimson-colored seawater instantly filled the entire exalted celestial mountain. The amount of crimson-colored seawater was truly too great. In an instant, it covered the entire exalted celestial mountain and overflowed the relief sculpture tunnel. It even covered over half of the Azura Sea outside the relief sculpture tunnel. The boundless Blood Sea was floating in the sky above the Azura Sea. What an enormous crimson-colored sea! How did this sea appear? Jiang Xing and the other God Kings were all stunned. They did not know why such an enormous sea would suddenly appear on the exalted celestial mountain. Whoosh! This boundless Blood Sea started to shrink. It directly turned into the crimson-gowned Blood Sea Queen. The Blood Sea Queen looked to the Azura God King Luo Fan outside the relief sculpture tunnel with a beaming smile. Luo Fan, were you waiting for me? Unfortunately, the method I used to come out has greatly surpassed your expectations. Actually, even if you were to use Time Stop, it would still be ineffective against me. Having comprehended Time Stop, one could easily break through Time Stop. The Azura God King Luo Fan looked to the Blood Sea Queen. For a moment, he grew silent. Seeing the Blood Sea Queen's main body, he knew that it would be very difficult to kill this Blood Sea Queen. Ha ha, farewell. The Blood Sea Queen laughed complacently. Little girl. Suddenly, a hand lightly patted the Blood Sea Queen's shoulder. The smile on the Blood Sea Queen's face instantly stopped. She turned her head around in disbelief. A purple-gowned silver-haired old man was standing there indifferently. His gaze swept past her. It was as if he could see through her soul. You don't have to leave. Just stay here. Chapter 673. The sharp gaze of the purple-gowned silver-haired old man caused the Blood Sea Queen's heart to tremble. The Blood Sea Queen paid special attention to the bright and bewitching red mole between the eyebrows of this silver-haired old man. The Blood Sea Queen, who had never met the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial, did not know that the person who came was the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial. However, the strange aura emitted by the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial caused the Blood Sea Queen to not even dare to think of resisting. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial waved his hand, and the all-people seal seized by the Blood Sea Queen started to float. It directly floated before the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial took a glance at the all-people seal with his sharp eyes. With a light smile he said, "All-people seal. Little girl, you all are fighting over this all-people seal. Unfortunately, this all-people seal is destined to have an owner." Destined, master? The Blood Sea Queen was puzzled. Merely, she did not ask. Immediately after, the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial flew towards the relief sculpture tunnel of the Exalted Celestial Mountain. As for the all-people seal, it similarly floated in front of the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial and flew towards the relief sculpture tunnel together with the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial. From the moment the Thunder Punishment Exalted patted her shoulder, the Blood Sea Queen discovered that she was unable to move at all. However, the Blood Sea Queen still had a trace of hope in her heart. Bind. Will he be able to stop me from transforming into my true form? The Blood Sea Queen was extremely confident in her true form, the Blood Sea. When the Blood Sea Queen attempted to return to her original body, she felt that the binding around her body was extremely frightening. That powerful binding power was so strong that she was unable to even return to her original body. How is that possible? The Blood Sea Queen's heart trembled. Who is he? The Blood Sea Queen was shocked as she looked at the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial who was flying toward the relief sculpture tunnel. The Blood Sea Queen's true body was a vast sea of blood. In order to restrain the Blood Sea, the amount of restraining power required was extremely astonishing. However, the silver-haired old man was able to restrain him without batting an eyelid. With such an enormous disparity in strength, the Blood Sea Queen could only think of a single possibility. Could it be an exalted celestial? The Blood Sea Queen was unable to think of anyone other than an exalted celestial who possessed this sort of strength. In the legends, no matter how powerful a divine king was, they were also just an ant-like minor character in front of an Empyrean. Now, it seemed that the rumors were not groundless. When the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial brought the all-people seal and flew to a location near the relief sculpture tunnel, he turned around to look at the Azura God King Luo Fan who was standing motionlessly in midair. Who are you? The Azura God King Luo Fan's heart was filled with endless shock. Ever since the moment the purple-gowned silver-haired old man appeared before him, the Azura God King felt that he was completely bound by an incomparably powerful binding power. At this moment, the Azura God King was simply unable to move in the slightest. He could only blink his eyelids and move his mouth. The dignified Azura God King did not even have the chance to sense how the other party attacked before he was bound without any resistance. It was easy to imagine how powerful the opponent was. You want to become an Empyrean? Luo Fan, it is not that easy to become an exalted celestial. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial smiled indifferently. Then, he entered the relief sculpture tunnel. Many of the sage emperors had seen exalted celestials before. As for the Azura God King Luo Fan, he had only seen the unfettered exalted celestial. As for the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial and the Floating Feathers Exalted Celestial, he had never seen them before. Could he be the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial or the Floating Feathers Exalted Celestial? Luo Fan's heart trembled. Luo Fan suddenly recalled that 6 quadrillion years ago, at the final juncture of the battle for the Spirit Treasure, the Floating Feathers Exalted Celestial had secretly acted and helped the unfettered God King whose strength was not considered to be the strongest. He had allowed the unfettered God King to become an exalted celestial. Could it be that this exalted celestial is going to interfere again like last time? Luo Fan felt helpless. With the appearance of an exalted celestial, who the new exalted celestial would be was no longer something that Luo Fan and the others could decide. Inside the purple mystic mansion, before the water screen in the inner lake, many of the Qin disciples opened their eyes wide as they watched the purple-gowned silver-haired old man enter the relief sculpture tunnel. Before this old man, the Azura God King and the Blood Sea Queen were unable to move in the slightest. Father, who is this old man? How is he so powerful? Qin Si gulped and exclaimed in surprise. Third brother, this silver-haired old man's strength seems to be frighteningly frightening. Qin Feng also exclaimed in surprise. Everyone knew about the status of the Azura God King in the divine realm. However, before this silver-haired old man, the Azura God King appeared like a child. Qin Yu looked at the water screen and his eyes shone. A faint smile appeared on his face. This Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial has finally joined the battle. Qin Yu muttered in a low voice. Qin Yu had seen the unfettered Exalted Celestial before. As for the identity of the Floating Feathers Exalted Celestial, Qin Yu was also able to roughly determine it. Only this Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial was someone that he had never seen before. When a super expert that he had never seen before appeared, Qin Yu naturally determined that it was the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial. Other than the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial, Qin Yu was unable to think of anyone else that possessed such strength. Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial. Zhonglon cried out in surprise. Why did this Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial join the battle? Brother Zhonglon, you said that it's the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial? You know him? Yi Feng beside him was also a bit surprised. At this moment, the appearance of the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial had caused all of the Purple Mystic Mansion spectators to become nervous. This included the God Kings. Zhonglon slightly nodded. That's right. Back then, I had met the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial once with that Zhong Fan. Never would I have expected that the All-People Seal would cause the Exalted Celestial to appear in the end. It would appear that the owner of this All-People Seal will be decided by the Exalted Celestial. Oh, that's not necessarily the case. Qin Yu's voice sounded. Zhonglon, Yi Feng, Zhuocholin, Kuro, Zhongli and a large group of people in the surroundings all looked to Qin Yu in amazement. They were somewhat surprised as to why Qin Yu would say those words. Through the water screen, Qin Yu saw the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial's confident appearance. His new cosmos' spatial energy had already detected the reactions of the God Kings on the Exalted Celestial Mountain. Especially that Zhong Fan. His eyes were filled with pleasant surprise. That was something that could not deceive Qin Yu. The appearance of the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial had caused Zhong Fan to be this excited. When he recalled that son-in-law of the utmost North Sage Emperor's palace, Zhong Fan had chosen Zhou Xian for no reason at all. Qin Yu was naturally able to deduce the contents of that Zhou clan's betrothal gift list. No wonder first-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasures were able to cause Zhong Fan to not care about my first-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasure and choose Zhou Xian. I reckon that only this portion of Exalted Celestial's spiritual treasures that contain the opportunity to become an Exalted Celestial. When a person falls from the peak of pleasant surprise to the abyss of despair, what sort of scene would that be? Qin Yu thought in his heart. After that, he lightly smiled and calmly looked at the scene of the exalted celestial mountain on the water screen. The rules of the relief sculpture tunnel were things that even exalted celestials could not violate. The thunder punishment exalted celestial was walking through the relief sculpture tunnel step by step. As he looked at the relief sculptures beside the relief sculpture tunnel, his eyes were filled with respect. Faced with these relief sculptures that ranged from simple to great Tao, the thunder punishment exalted celestial did not dare to look down upon them in the slightest. After exiting the relief sculpture tunnel, the thunder punishment exalted celestial's back seemed to have become a bit straighter. His aura had also become a bit sharper. That golden all-people seal was still floating before the thunder punishment exalted celestial. The thunder punishment exalted celestial's gaze was sharp. He swept his gaze over his surroundings. There were many god kings standing in the air before him. Merely, at this moment, those god kings were all unable to move. Senior thunder punishment exalted celestial. Huang Fu Yu cried out in alarm. Many of the sage emperors present. They had all seen the thunder punishment exalted celestial before. Now that they saw the appearance of the thunder punishment exalted celestial, one could imagine how shocked they were. The thunder punishment exalted celestial had an ice-cold smile on his face. He was a bit disappointed in his heart. Never would I have expected that Qin Yu actually did not come to fight for the all-people seal. If he was here, I would have been able to seize the opportunity to kill him. It would appear that I can only wait for the birth of a new exalted celestial in order to kill him. Lord Father. That Zhou Hua flew over from afar. Currently, among the 20-plus god kings on the exalted celestial mountain, only Zhou Hua, Zhou Xian and Zhong Fan were not restricted. Other than the three of them, the rest of them were all restricted and unable to move at all. Naturally, Zhou Xian and Zhong Fan also flew over. When they were several tens of meters away from the thunder punishment exalted celestial, Zhou Hua, Zhou Xian and Zhong Fan stopped and bowed respectfully. When Zhong Fan raised his head and looked to the all-people seal in front of the thunder punishment exalted celestial, his gaze started to burn. The greater the price one had to pay, the more nervous one would become when one obtained the treasure. All-people seal, all-people seal. It's finally mine. In an instant, Zhong Fan's heart was filled with grief, excitement, pain, excitement and all sorts of other emotions. For the all-people seal, he had abandoned his #1 candidate for son-in-law, Qin Yu. He had also abandoned his daughter and his brothers. He had paid such an enormous price. Wasn't it all for today? Today's item was the most precious of the 3 parts of the exalted celestial spiritual treasure, the all-people seal. Never had I expected that Senior Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial would personally act. With Senior Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial acting, it would naturally be up to Senior to decide who this all-people seal belongs to. Although that Huang Fu Yu was unable to move, he still said with a smile. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial looked to Huang Fu Yu. He then looked to Putai Hong, Mu Qin and the other sage emperors. He lightly smiled and nodded. He reckoned that these sage emperors would not dare to play any tricks. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial possessed sufficient confidence. Huff! A string sound was heard in the space. The other sage emperors felt that the bindings had suddenly disappeared. These sage emperors were all able to move. However, Huang Fu Yu, Duanmu Rufeng, Putai Hong and them all knew when to advance and when to retreat. They did not approach the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial. Instead, they respectfully bowed to him from afar. After that, they no longer said anything to disturb him. Zhong Fan, this all-people seal should be yours. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial said with a light smile. Those sage emperors beside him felt a trace of jealousy in their hearts. Merely, although they were jealous, they all smiled and bowed. Congratulations, Brother Zhong Fan. Congratulations, Brother Zhong Fan, for obtaining this all-people seal. Zhou Hua also said with a smile on his face. At this moment, Zhong Fan was smiling like a flower. He immediately bowed to Zhou Hua and the other sage emperors not far away. Thank you all, thank you all. At this moment, Jiang Fan was extremely excited. This all-people seal, you can accept it. The thunder punishment exalted celestial waved his hand. That golden all-people seal immediately flew toward Jiang Fan, who was not far away from them. Zhou Hua and Zhou Xian both had smiles on their faces. As for Jiang Fan, he was so excited that his hand started to slightly tremble. Thank you, Senior Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial. Jiang Fan said again. Only then did he extend his hand toward the all-people seal that was flying toward him. When the all-people seal landed in his hand, Jiang Fan immediately felt that his heart had calmed down. The material of this all-people seal was a bit ice-cold. However, when it was in his hand, it easily caused one's heart to calm down. Finally, I've finally obtained it. At this moment, Jiang Fan felt that his eyes had started to moisten. All those sacrifices, at the moment when he grabbed the all-people seal, Jiang Fan felt that everything was worth it. At this moment, he was the happiest moment since the groom search. However, right at this moment... Stop. A gentle voice sounded. Immediately, the area where Jiang Fan, Zhou Hua, Zhou Xian and the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial were located completely disappeared. The flow of time instantly stopped. Time stop. As for the black-gowned Qin Yu, he appeared out of thin air. Qin Yu. In the distance, Huangfu Yu, Duanmu Rufeng, Mu Qin, Shen Tian and the other sage emperors were all shocked. However, none of them dared to act. They also did not want to act. At this moment, with the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial here, how could there be a need for them to act? Qin Yu has acted. Duanmu Yu, who was still unable to move in the distance, was also shocked. Not only the God Kings on the Exalted Celestial Mountain, even those God Kings in the distant Fog City's Purple Mystic Mansion and the Qin clan's descendants all opened their eyes wide in shock. Qin Yu, who was originally watching with them, had actually suddenly appeared on the Exalted Celestial Mountain. Qin Yu. Jiang Fan felt that he was unable to move. Jiang Fan, this all-people seal is mine now. Qin Yu's voice sounded in Jiang Fan's mind. As for Qin Yu himself, he directly grabbed the all-people seal from Jiang Fan's hand without the slightest hesitation. However, Jiang Fan was unable to move at all. Under time stop, he was unable to even speak. For the all-people seal, Jiang Fan had given up a lot. This all-people seal could be said to be Jiang Fan's lifeblood. No. Jiang Fan angrily roared in his heart. However, the all-people seal still ended up in Qin Yu's hand. When the all-people seal disappeared from Jiang Fan's hand, Jiang Fan felt as if his heart was being torn apart. He was in extreme pain. After scheming for so long, it was all for naught. Chapter 674. Although it took time to describe, Qin Yu's movements were actually very fast. Once he appeared, he immediately snatched away the all-people seal from Jiang Fan with a lightning speed. Qin Yu. Zhou Hua and Zhou Xian's eyes involuntarily widened. There was anger and fear in their eyes. They couldn't move at all. Qin Yu, you're finally here. As Empyrean Thunder Punishment saw Qin Yu appear, his heart was filled with excitement. He could only attack once. If he managed to kill Qin Yu in this one attack, then he would have no choice but to kill Qin Yu. It wasn't against the rules at all. Time stop is but child's play. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial was extremely proficient in the laws of time. With a thought, he was about to remove the time stop. At this moment, the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial who was trapped by the time stop could not help but cry out in surprise. What sort of time stop is this? Why is it not under my control? The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial immediately grew anxious. Time stop was the result of the nebula's time power stopping the flow of time. How could the new universe's power of time be controlled by Empyrean Thunder Punishment? There were only two ways to break time stop. One was to rely on the comprehension of time stop, and the other was to use brute force to break it. However, by relying on brute force, it would usually take some time. Not good, not good. Thunder punishment exalted Celestial's heart immediately tensed up. Thunder punishment exalted Celestial, I'm sorry. Qin Yu's ice-cold voice sounded in the thunder punishment exalted Celestial's mind. After Qin Yu snatched away the all-people seal from Zhong Fan, a simple and unadorned black spear suddenly appeared in his hand. The dark and yellow spots were on the shaft of the spear. It was the divine spear waning snow. Swish! Qin Yu's figure suddenly shot forth. Like an arrow, he shot forth rapidly. The divine spear waning snow in his hand was pointed at Zhou Hua, who was the closest to Zhong Fan. The distance of a few meters was too short. No! The source energy within Empyrean Thunder Punishment's body began to surge. Even the energy within the Empyrean Spirit Treasure, the Origin Sin Sword, began to surge. The flow of time was also like a string that had been stretched to its limit, about to break at any moment. But, no matter how strong the Thunder Punishment exalted Celestial was, it would still take some time for him to break through the time stop that originated from the new cosmos. That little bit of time was enough for Qin Yu to kill Zhou Hua. No. Zhou Hua stared at the spear tip that was growing larger and larger in front of him, his heart filled with unwillingness. At this moment, he thought of the utmost South Sage Emperor Duanmu Yun who had died earlier. Duanmu Yun's head had also been pierced through. As for him, Zhou Hua, his ending was the same. Father. Puchi. Before Zhou Hua died, he was still hoping that his father, the Thunder Punishment exalted Celestial, could save him. However, it was too late. The ice-cold divine spear waning snow mercilessly pierced into Zhou Hua's head. The terrifying power of the divine spear waning snow easily tore apart the defense of the origin power on the surface of Zhou Hua's soul. Bang! Zhou Hua's true spirit, directly dissipated. The Blood Sea Queen's Crimson Trident's attack power was inferior to even first-rate Grand Mist spiritual treasures. Not to mention Qin Yu's divine spear waning snow. With the divine spear waning snow combined with time stop, killing sage emperors was a piece of cake. Swish! The moment the divine spear waning snow pierced through Zhou Hua, the speed of the spear did not decrease at all. Bang! The divine spear waning snow's body shatter ability was activated. Zhou Hua's entire body exploded. He turned into an endless amount of blood, flesh and bones. As for the black-gowned Qin Yu, he was like a god of death. Holding the divine spear waning snow, he rapidly pierced forward. The divine spear waning snow merely changed its direction slightly. Swish! The divine spear waning snow directly pierced toward the nearby Zhou Xian. The divine spear waning snow's speed was still as fast as before. Qin Yu's hand was very steady. There was no hesitation at all. His gaze was firmly fixed on Zhou Xian's eyes. No, don't. As Zhou Xian saw the divine spear waning snow rapidly approaching him, his heart was filled with fear. In the previous instant, his father, the Northwest Sage Emperor Zhou Hua, had turned into minced flesh. His true spirit had also dissipated. As for Zhou Xian, his strength was far inferior when compared to the Northwest Sage Emperor. There was simply no need to doubt what the result would be if the divine spear waning snow were to pierce his head. No. Zhou Xian's heart was filled with unwillingness. As he looked at the black-gowned, ice-cold and emotionless Qin Yu, Zhou Xian felt that the heavens had played a huge joke on him. When he first met that brat from the mortal realm, Zhou Xian only felt that this Qin Yu was merely an ant. He felt that he could kill him with a flip of his hand. However, less than 20,000 years had passed. This Qin Yu had become the new craftsman god of the divine realm, an influential figure. Furthermore, in the following few years, Qin Yu's strength increased at an astonishing speed. Before becoming a god king, Qin Yu was able to defeat Zhou Tong. After becoming a god king, Qin Yu killed Zhou Wulian, Zhou Tong, and the others. His strength was even greater than the Azura god kings. And now, he wanted to kill Zhou Xian in front of his grandfather, the Thunder Punishment exalted Celestial. Grandfather! When the divine spear waning snow was only tens of centimeters away from Zhou Xian's eyes, Zhou Xian angrily roared with unwillingness in his heart. Bang! The new cosmos's power of time that restricted the flow of time suddenly collapsed. Time returned to its normal state. Time stop was broken. Qin Yu's complexion changed. This thunder punishment exalted celestial is so powerful. He's even faster than I expected. Qin Yu could not help but increase the speed of the divine spear waning snow. However, Qin Yu was unable to stab anymore. Time reversal. A voice that sounded calm yet contained endless anger resounded in Qin Yu's mind like thunder from the ninth heaven. Qin Yu's entire mind was buzzing. At the same time, Qin Yu felt that an extremely strange thing was happening. The surrounding time was changing. The distance between his divine spear waning snow and Zhou Xian was getting further and further away. He was retreating. No, not retreating. He was returning to the past. Qin Yu. The thunder punishment exalted celestial's sharp gaze was firmly fixed on Qin Yu. The shock in his heart was indescribable. At this moment, he had many doubts. For example, why was Qin Yu able to enter the exalted celestial mountain without going through the relief sculpture tunnel? Even Empyreans needed to go through the relief sculpture tunnel. The spatial energy of the divine realm was restricted by the exalted celestial mountain. Regardless of who it was, they would not be able to teleport into the exalted celestial mountain. Other than this, he was also confused as to why Qin Yu's time stop was different from ordinary time stops. Why was he unable to break through it and could only use brute force to break through it? However, no matter how many doubts he had, they were unable to stop the thunder punishment exalted celestial's hatred and endless anger toward Qin Yu. Die! A broad and thick enormous sword appeared in the thunder punishment exalted celestial's hand. This enormous sword was the legendary supreme exalted celestial's spiritual treasure, the Origin Sin Sword. With a slight movement of the Origin Sin Sword, a ray of sword energy shot toward Qin Yu. The speed of the Origin Sin Sword's sword energy was simply too fast. Qin Yu was still in the time reversal state when he was struck by the sword energy. Back when Qin Yu fought against the four great god kings of the Thunder Punishment City and killed Zhou Wulian and Zhou Tong, the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial Mountain had attacked twice. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial attacked twice. The first time he used the single Qi 8 elements. However, the single Aura 8 elements was unable to break through the space freeze. The second move was the sword energy of the Origin Sin Sword. This sword energy was like a knife cutting through paper, easily cutting through the frozen space. The offensive power of this sword energy was far more terrifying than the single Aura 8 elements. You will undoubtedly die. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial removed the time reversal. He was extremely confident that even an Empyrean would be severely wounded by a single strike of the Origin Sin Sword. As for a God King, they would definitely die. Puff. As the sword energy entered his body, Qin Yu was like a mortal being struck by lightning. His entire body began to violently tremble. Puff. Like cheap water, Qin Yu constantly spat out blood. His entire body continued to tremble in the air. Blood constantly seeped out from his nose and eyes. His complexion was as pale as a sheet of paper. It was a horrifying sight. After being struck by the sword energy of the Origin Sin Sword, death was certain. Whoosh! The bleeding Qin Yu suddenly vanished into thin air. Before the eyes of the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial, the numerous Saint Emperors, and God Kings, he vanished from the Exalted Celestial Mountain. Grandpa, chase after him. Let's quickly chase after him and kill this Qin Yu. Zhou Xian's eyes were filled with anger and grief. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial nodded and coldly said, "This Qin Yu does indeed have some powerful divine abilities. He was actually able to teleport out of the Exalted Celestial Mountain without going through the relief sculpture tunnel. In order to leave the Exalted Celestial Mountain, one had to go through the relief sculpture tunnel. This was practically a theorem. However, Qin Yu had broken this theorem twice in a row. This so-called theorem was, in fact, something that geniuses would violate. Swish! A spiritual pearl surrounded by lightning suddenly flew out from the shattered flesh and blood, flying directly towards Zhou Xian. This spiritual pearl was the Zhou clan's clan protection spiritual treasure, the Thunder Origin Spiritual Pearl. Now that the Zhou clan only had a single god king left, Zhou Xian, the Thunder Origin Spiritual Pearl would naturally fall into Zhou Xian's hands. Xian, first drip a drop of blood on it. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial said. Zhou Xian understood. A drop of blood immediately floated out from his fingertip and fused into the Thunder Origin Spiritual Pearl. The Thunder Origin Spiritual Pearl then floated above Zhou Xian's head. The new Northwest Sage Emperor, Zhou Xian. Senior Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial, that all people seal is in Qin Yu's hands. Let's quickly chase after him. Zhang Fan said impatiently. No matter how much he had given up, the all-people seal was his flesh and blood. Qin Yu had snatched away the all-people seal. Thus, he naturally had to take it back. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial nodded indifferently and said, "Rest assured, that Qin Yu had been struck by the Origin Sin Sword. His soul and true spirit have definitely been destroyed. He is undoubtedly dead. He had merely teleported away before his death. I'm afraid that he has already died. Oh, I'll accompany you all right now. Junior brother." An ice-cold voice sounded in the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial's mind. You've already done the mission that Zhang Lan requested of you. You've already done it once. Thus, you cannot do it a second time. Now, you are not allowed to participate in the competition between God Kings. Quickly return. The Floating Feathers Exalted Celestial's voice contained no room for negotiation. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial's expression grew solemn. Yes, eldest senior apprentice brother. Exalted Celestial Thunder Punishment immediately replied via divine sense. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial did not dare to disobey the Floating Feathers Exalted Celestial's order at all. If he were to disobey, then although the Floating Feathers Exalted Celestial did not mention the consequences, the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial was able to imagine it. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial suddenly looked at the surrounding Saint Emperors and God Kings. He indifferently said, "That Qin Yu is dead for sure. All you need to do is go to Fog City and seize the All-People Seal." In the current Fog City, the only true expert was Zhang Lan. The Azura God King and that little girl were both experts who had comprehended the time-stop remarkable ability. If the two of them joined hands, they would be able to easily defeat Zhang Lan. There is no doubt that you will be able to snatch the All-People Seal. There's no need for me to participate. After the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial finished speaking, he nodded slightly to Zhou Xian. Then, he flew directly to the Relief Sculpture Tunnel and exited the Exalted Celestial Mountain through it. Senior Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial. The Azura God King could not help but respectfully salute. At this moment, all of the God King's bindings were removed. Furthermore, the final words spoken by the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial earlier were clearly heard by the Azura God King and the Blood Sea Queen. Qin Yu had died. The only person that could pose a threat was Zhang Lan. What was there to be afraid of? Huff. The Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial directly teleported and disappeared before everyone's eyes. As for the 8 great sage emperors, the Azura God King and the Blood Sea Queen, a cold light shined in their eyes. Qin Yu had already died. Thus, the All-People Seal was naturally easy to obtain. Outside the Fog City, Qin Yu appeared here out of thin air. Qin Yu did not immediately teleport back to the Purple Mystic Mansion. Qin Yu was afraid that his relatives would be worried. PFF. Qin Yu vomited another mouthful of blood. The attack of this exalted celestial spiritual treasure is truly frightening. Qin Yu gasped in admiration. When one's body received an attack, it would only take a blink of an eye to recover. What caused the greatest harm to Qin Yu was the damage to his soul. Within Qin Yu's mind. At this moment, the soul yuanying that was faintly flickering with 8 different kinds of light was circulating unceasingly. When it received the attack of the Origin Sin Sword energy, the Soul Yuanying appeared to have a large wound cut open by a blade. At that moment, Qin Yu truly felt that he was nearing death. Fortunately, after the 8 great origin energies completely fused with the Soul Yuanying, his recovery ability had reached an unprecedented level. Furthermore, Qin Yu's soul had completely fused with the new cosmos. In an instant, the new cosmos' cosmic origin began to unceasingly transmit origin energy to help Qin Yu's soul. Huff. Wiping away the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, Qin Yu displayed a smile on his face. The power of this thunder punishment exalted Celestial's attack is not small. I reckon that they all thought that I would undoubtedly die. Oh, a group of God Kings are all coming? It's time for us to properly welcome them. With a flip of his hand, the all-people seal that everyone fought over appeared in Qin Yu's hand. After that, with a smile on his face, Qin Yu's figure moved. He directly returned to the Purple Mystic Mansion. Chapter 675. Fog City, Purple Mystic Mansion. The appearance of Qin Yu bleeding from his 7 orifices and twitching caused the large group of people from the Purple Mystic Mansion to be shocked. They did not dare to believe that their pillar of support, Qin Yu, would actually fall. Mother, is father okay? Will something happen to father? Qin Shuang, who had grown into a handsome young man, asked Zhang Li anxiously. At this moment, Zhang Li, Zhang Lan, Zhuochulin, Yi Feng, Kuro and the rest of them were all in a mess. Ever since they saw Qin Yu being hacked by the Origin Sin Sword and bleeding from his 7 apertures on the water screen, Zhang Li, Zhang Lan, Yi Feng and the rest of them had become extremely nervous. Then, the image of the water curtain, controlled by Qin Yu, instantly blurred. Next, the water curtain directly collapsed into water and flowed into the lake. Seeing this scene, a large group of people panicked. Second brother, don't panic. Qin Si shouted at Qin Shuang. Although Qin Si said those words, there was an unconcealable worry and fear in his eyes. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Your father is fine, he's fine. Zhang Li said with certainty. Since Zhang Li and Qin Yu were soul cultivators, there was naturally a connection between them. Zhang Li could sense that Qin Yu was severely injured, especially when he was attacked by the sword Qi of the Central Plains Sin Sword. However, Zhang Li could sense Qin Yu's presence. After all, Qin Yu was still alive. He was heavily injured, but not dead. Zhang Li comforted the 2 children, Qin Shuang and Qin Si, as well as those disciples of the Qin clan who were already panicking. However, Zhang Li's heart was filled with worry. Brother Yu, where are you? Come back quickly. Zhang Lan, Kuro, Zhuochulin, and the other God Kings were also a bit nervous. Little Yu, I've been seriously injured this time around. Zhang Lan's expression was ugly. He was extremely anxious. The Origin Sin Sword was an Empyrean spirit treasure. The power of an Empyrean spirit treasure was astonishing in itself. Furthermore, it was used by an Empyrean himself. Its power was simply unimaginable. In Zhang Lan's heart, if an exalted celestial were to act, then God Kings would definitely be killed. Not to mention that Empyrean thunder punishment was so angry that he had directly used an Empyrean spirit treasure. The destructive power of that sword could be imagined. However, Zhang Lan was confident in Qin Yu. Having watched Qin Yu grow step by step, Zhang Lan possessed a special kind of confidence in Qin Yu. Big brother, he's not dead. Everyone, don't worry. My big brother is definitely not dead. He'll be back soon. Kuro said to the people around him with absolute certainty. He looked at the people around him with a resolute gaze. When those panicked and worried Qin disciples saw Kuro's calm and collected demeanor, they also calmed down inwardly. Who? Suddenly, a black-robed figure appeared above the surface of the inner lake. That familiar figure caused the Qin disciples, Zhang Li, and Kuro to be slightly stunned. However, they instantly became excited. Father! Qin Si and Qin Shuang's clear and resounding voices were the first to ring out. When Qin Si and Qin Shuang saw that familiar figure, their eyes became slightly moist. Big brother. Ho Fei and Kuro also looked to Qin Yu. Little Yu. Qin Feng and Qin Zheng also displayed pleasantly surprised smiles on their faces as they looked to Qin Yu. His brothers, his relatives. Qin Yu looked to this large group of people. From the brilliant gazes of this group of people, Qin Yu was able to clearly sense the concern and worry that his relatives and brothers had for him. Qin Yu felt a burst of warmth from the bottom of his heart. I'm fine. Qin Yu forcefully suppressed the excitement in his heart and said to the large group of people. After that, Qin Yu flew to Zhongli, Qin Si and Qin Shuang's side. The several hundred people here immediately burst into joyous laughter. Seeing that Qin Yu was fine, they were all extremely happy. Brother Yu. Zhongli, who had not appeared the entire time since she saw Qin Yu's appearance, finally called out softly at this moment. Qin Yu held Zhongli's hand. Zhongli's palm was astonishingly filled with cold sweat. Li'er, I'm sorry. Qin Yu said comfortingly. He was completely able to sense Li'er's worry and fear. Zhongli lightly leaned on Qin Yu's bosom. She was merely quietly and motionlessly. Back then, when she saw the scene of Qin Yu being struck by a sword and bleeding from his 7 apertures, she was truly frightened. She did not dare to imagine what she would do if Qin Yu were to truly die. That Qin Si and Qin Shuang were currently chattering to each other. They were even pointing at Qin Yu and Zhongli and snickering to the side. After a long while, Zhongli turned around and glanced at Qin Si and Qin Shuang. Little Si, little Shuang, you two brats, move to the side. Zhongli scolded with a smile. Yes, mother. Qin Si and Qin Shuang replied while giggling. Currently, the atmosphere of the people from the Purple Mystic Mansion was extremely festive. Oh, that's right, brother Yu, what's the situation on the Exalted Celestial Mountain now? Would that thunder punishment Exalted Celestial come to kill you? Zhongli suddenly looked to Qin Yu and asked worriedly. Hearing that, Qin Yu smiled and immediately waved his sleeve toward the air. Whoosh! A lot of the water on the lake directly flew into the air and then turned into an enormous water screen. The water screen was as clear as a mirror. It displayed the scene of the interior of the Exalted Celestial Mountain. Even the voices of the various god kings were being displayed by Qin Yu's remarkable ability. Immediately, this large group of people grew quiet. Everyone was quietly looking toward the water screen. Inside the Exalted Celestial Mountain. God Kings, that Qin Yu is already dead. The only person in the Fog City's Purple Mystic Mansion that could pose a threat is Zhonglan. If we were to kill our way over, we would be able to easily seize the All-People Seal. Zhou Xian said with a loud voice. At this moment, Zhou Xian's heart was filled with anger. Earlier, his father Zhou Hua had died before his eyes. How he wanted to hack Qin Yu into 1,000 pieces and properly torture Qin Yu in order to avenge his father's death. It is still uncertain whether that Qin Yu is truly dead. That Blood Sea Queen Shui Yun said with a cold smile. At this moment, the Blood Sea Queen and the Azura God King had both entered the interior of the Exalted Celestial Mountain through the relief sculpture tunnel. This large group of God Kings were currently discussing the matter of seizing the All-People Seal. You dare to doubt what the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial personally said? Duanmu Ruffing shouted coldly. Duanmu Ruffing looked to the Blood Sea Queen with a gaze filled with endless killing intent and resentment. Duanmu Yun was killed by the Blood Sea Queen. This was something that a large group of people saw. However, it was truly too difficult to kill the Blood Sea Queen. Especially since the Blood Sea Queen was able to turn into an endless sea of blood and escape in an instant. Although the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial personally said it, that Qin Yu had, after all, used teleportation to escape from the Exalted Celestial Mountain. For him to be able to use teleportation, it means that he was still alive at that time. Sun Lian of the Azura Sea said calmly. Many God Kings nodded. Of course, this only means that Qin Yu was still alive when he escaped. From the appearance of the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial's attack, Qin Yu ought to have been severely injured. It is very likely that Qin Yu had used teleportation before his death. Even if Qin Yu did not die, his soul would have received an unprecedented injury. That is without a doubt. Sun Lian continued. The 8 great sage emperors and a large group of people all nodded. They agreed with what Sun Lian said. This was something that the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial had personally attacked. Furthermore, he had used an Exalted Celestial's spiritual treasure. How astonishing was that attack! Even the Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial said that Qin Yu would definitely die. From this, one could imagine how powerful the sword strike that Qin Yu received was. Everyone, what are you all still hesitating for? Even if that Qin Yu is still alive, his soul would have received an unprecedented injury. I'm afraid that he would not be able to attack at all. He would only be a cripple. If we still do not attack now, when should we attack? That Zhou Xian said impatiently. Zhang Fan's expression was gloomy. How close was the All-People Seal to him? How much did he give up for the All-People Seal? However now, the All-People Seal was gone. Brother Shintu, Sage Emperors, there is no need to bother with them. We, the 8 great Sage Emperors, will attack first. Zhang Fan said directly. Let's go. Once Zhang Fan said those words, the other Sage Emperors immediately responded. They, the 8 great Sage Emperors, were not afraid of a single Zhang Lan. As for Qin Yu, he was likely already a dead man. Even if he was still alive, he would likely be unable to attack again. What was there to be afraid of? Mu Qin, why are you still fighting? Could it be that you want all of the God Kings in the Forest Ocean City to die? A voice that contained anger sounded. The Northeast Sage Emperor Mu Qin turned around to look. Big brother. Mu Qin looked to the person who spoke with disbelief. The person who spoke was originally a very ordinary middle-aged man. However, his appearance soon changed. He turned into the mysterious old man that Qin Yu had met in the Eastern Sea, Mu Yu. Green Leaf God King. Zhang Fan, Shun Yen and them all cried out in alarm. The Green Leaf God King of the Mu clan was also renowned throughout the Divine Realm. This time around, Old Man Mu Yu had changed his appearance. He had been quietly standing beside them the entire time. From the beginning to the end, Old Man Mu Yu had only followed the crowd. He had never been overly ambitious. Mu Qin, currently, the Mu clan only has a single God King, Yu. I hope that you will carefully consider your actions. What are you planning to do? Could it be that you want to seize the All-People Seal? Old Man Mu Yu shouted coldly. No. Mu Qin immediately shook his head. Old Man Mu Yu humphed coldly. You don't want to? If you don't want the All-People Seal, then what are you fighting for? Big brother, as a Sage Emperor, how could I retreat by myself? Mu Qin argued. Old Man Mu Yu laughed coldly. Well then, I'm too lazy to bother with you anymore. I merely hope that you will be careful in everything you do. After all, you are the only God King left in the Forest Ocean City. After he finished saying that, Old Man Mu Yu directly flew toward the relief sculpture tunnel. Big brother. Mu Qin shouted anxiously. If you have something to say, then say it. Old Man Mu Yu stopped. Are you able to return to the Forest Ocean City? Mu Qin asked expectantly. Old Man Mu Yu lightly laughed. He then flew toward the relief sculpture tunnel even faster. Mu Qin, the decision that I have made will not change. As for you, take care of yourself. After he finished saying that, Mu Yu entered the relief sculpture tunnel. Chapter 676. Seeing his big brother Green Leaf God King leave, Mu Qin's expression changed. Brother Mu Qin, you wouldn't be giving up, right? Zhang Fan looked to Mu Qin. Even Zhou Xian looked to Mu Qin. They were most worried that Mu Qin would be influenced by the sudden appearance of the Green Leaf God King and give up at the last moment. If that happened, the 8 great Sage Emperors would become the 7 great Sage Emperors. That would not be good. Don't worry, everyone. I won't leave by myself. Mu Qin nodded to the surrounding Sage Emperors. Only then did Zhong Fan and them feel relieved. Blood Sea Queen, shall we leave? That Azura God King suddenly spoke to the Blood Sea Queen. The Blood Sea Queen Shui Yun and the Azura God King Luo Fan glanced at each other. Smiles appeared on their faces. Let's go. The Blood Sea Queen and the Azura God King were very straightforward. They directly flew toward the relief sculpture tunnel. Immediately, the other two God Kings of the Azura Sea, Sun Lian and Lu Lian, followed closely behind. We can't let them take the All-People Seal. Zhong Fan shouted. He immediately flew over to the relief sculpture tunnel. Immediately, the other 7 Sage Emperors also followed Zhong Fan and flew toward the relief sculpture tunnel. The departure of the 8 great Sage Emperors, the Azura God King, the Blood Sea Queen and the others also caused the other God Kings of the 8 great divine families, Jiang Xing, Shen Tuyin, Putai Tu, Huang Fu Lei and Tang Xiang, to follow them. And, I will not be joining this battle. Duanmu Yu's divine awareness voice transmission sounded in Duanmu Rufing's mind. At this moment, Duanmu Rufing, who had flown to the entrance of the relief sculpture tunnel, turned her head around to take a glance at the distant Duanmu Yu. Then, she lightly nodded and sent a voice transmission to Duanmu Yu. You can return to the Light Lens City. In Duanmu Rufing's heart, Duanmu Yu's strength was not strong. Thus, it would be useless for him to go. It would be better for him to return. Sister Yun, 5 hidden God Kings have already died this time. Could it be that you still want to go to Fog City? If we fight, we might even lose our lives. Since Big Brother Muyu has gone back, let's go back as well. Feng Xian looked at her good sister, Cloud Hidden, and said. Cloud was silent for a moment. Brother Ma Tian, what about you? Cloud looked at Ma Tian. At this moment, the only reclusive God Kings still on Exalted Celestial Mountain were Feng Xian, Yun Ing, and Ma Tian. Ma Tian took a deep breath and looked towards the relief sculpture passage with burning eyes. Yun Ing, Feng Xian, you can go back. I don't know how many billions of years I've lived. I'd rather die in a battle than live such a boring life. I still want to fight. Who knows, I might become the new Empyrean. After all, no one can say for sure who the Empyrean is. Ma Tian's words caused Yun Ing and Feng Xian to fall silent. Swish. Ma Tian transformed into a stream of light and flew down the relief sculpture tunnel. Feng Xian, let's go back. Hidden Cloud sighed. It had only been 30 years since the Exalted Celestial Mountain descended, but far too many God Kings had died. Yun Ing and Feng Xian didn't feel any hope of becoming an Exalted Celestial. They decided to give up. Xian, to be honest, I don't believe that little brother Qin Yu would die. Come, accompany me to check it out. Blood Demon Queen Yu Cha said with a smile. The God Kings of Azura Sea and Mount Blood Demon had all set off. Only the 2 God Kings of Dual Domain Island remained. One was Floating Mist God King and the other was God King Puyin. Puyin, are we going or not? Floating Mist Queen looked to Puyin. Puyin lightly laughed. Floating Mist, in Dual Domain Island, I am the only one left from the Buddhist domain and you are the only one left from the Immortal domain. It's best that we return safely. Otherwise, Dual Domain Island might very well fall apart. This time, the 8 great Sage Emperors, the Blood Sea Queen, the Azura God King, Sun Lian, Lu Lian, Tang Xiang, Jiang Xing, Huang Fu Lei, Putai Tu, Shen Tuyin, Ma Tian, the Blood Demon Queen Yu Cha, Xian, a total of 20 God Kings rushed towards the Fog City. As for Mu Yu, Yun Ing, Feng Xian, Duanmu Yu, Floating Mist God King and Puyin, the 6 God Kings all gave up. 20 God Kings. Inside the Purple Mystic Mansion, Qin Yu saw the God Kings on the water screen teleporting and disappearing from the relief sculpture tunnel one by one. He displayed a smile on his face. Uncle Lon, I'm afraid that the 8 great Sage Emperors have already arrived outside the Fog City. Prepare yourselves. Everyone, let's enter the new cosmos. Faced with the attacks of the 8 great Sage Emperors, Blood Sea Queen, Azura God King and them, Qin Yu was already prepared. Okay. Zhong Lan replied with a smile. Zhang Li, Kuro, Zhuochulin, Yi Feng, Ho Fei and them all had smiles on their faces. The situation was completely within their control. The 8 great sage emperors, Blood Sea Queen, Azura God King and them might have thought that Qin Yu had died or was so seriously injured that he could not move. However, those people had never imagined that Qin Yu's soul had absorbed the 8 great origin energies and possessed an astonishing recovery ability. Furthermore, Qin Yu's soul was completely compatible with the new Cosmos Origin Energy. This Cosmos Origin Energy is truly miraculous. Qin Yu gasped in admiration in his heart. The 8 great sage emperors were only able to indirectly use the Cosmos Origin Energy through the 8 great spiritual pearls. As for the exalted celestial experts, they were only able to use the Origin Energy. They were also unable to absorb the Origin Energy with their souls. In a cosmos, only the creator of the cosmos was capable of absorbing the Cosmos Origin Energy with their souls. For one's soul to absorb the Cosmos Origin Energy, it meant that one's soul was connected with the Cosmos Origin Energy. As long as the Cosmos Origin Energy was not destroyed, Qin Yu's soul would not be destroyed. Huff. In the several tens of thousands of miles of sky, the endless fog had all dissipated. The 8 great sage emperors, Azura God King, Blood Sea Queen and a large group of God Kings had all entered the Fog City. Qin Yu knew that a large group of God Kings had arrived. Thus, the city gate of the Fog City was not closed at all. Qin Yu, Jiang Lan and them are in that purple mystic mansion. The All-People Seal is most definitely there too. Zhou Xian pointed to the purple mystic mansion floating in the sky and said coldly. The Azura God King Luo Fan looked to the purple mystic mansion. After pondering for a while, he lightly smiled and then flew toward the purple mystic mansion. Once the Blood Sea Queen saw this, she immediately followed after him. You want to snatch the All-People Seal first? Zhang Fan's pupils shrunk. With Zhang Fan in the lead, the 8 great sage emperors also flew toward the purple mystic mansion. Immediately, the other 10 God Kings also followed after them. However, right at this moment, in the sky above the purple mystic mansion, an enormous black hole with a circumference of 1,000 miles suddenly appeared. This enormous black hole was so deep that one could not see the bottom. No one knew what was on the other side of this black hole that appeared out of nowhere. The purple mystic mansion that was originally motionless turned into a ray of light and flew into the black hole. It's one thing for the thunder punishment exalted celestial to act. However, you all still came to chase after me. Aren't you all being too excessive? Zhang Lan's voice sounded from the purple mystic mansion. After that, the entire purple mystic mansion entered the black hole. A large group of God Kings flew to the front of the enormous black passage. They were stunned. What was on the other side of this enormous black passage that one could not see the bottom of? At this moment, the 20 God Kings started to hesitate. Humph, what is there to be afraid of? There are God Kings, heavenly deities and even some deities in this purple mystic mansion. Even those people dare to enter it? Why would we not dare to enter it? The Blood Sea Queen Shui Yun sneered. She then turned into a ray of crimson light and flew into the enormous black passage. The black passage seemed to be able to devour everything. This Zhang Lan can be considered to be powerful. He was actually able to open a passage between the divine realm and the lower realm. Let's go. The Azura God King Luo Fan laughed and then also flew into the black passage. Sun Lian and God King Willow Lotus also flew into the black passage. At this moment, the 8 great sage emperors also came to a sudden realization. When they saw the black passage, they were a bit apprehensive. However, after hearing what Luo Fan and them said and thinking about it carefully, they all came to a sudden realization. Haha, that's right. Where could this black passage lead to? The passage from the divine realm to another space. As for the other space, it could only lead to the lower realm. Shun Tian laughed out loud. Entering the lower realm is merely child's play. Quickly, that passage is rapidly shrinking. Zhang Fan shouted. Immediately, the 8 great sage emperors turned into 8 rays of light and flew into the black passage. Behind them, Huang Fu Lei, Jiang Xing, Shuntuin and the rest of the God Kings also flew into the Black Passage. Thus, the 20 God Kings all flew into the Black Passage. New Cosmos. Inside the Purple Mystic Star. The Purple Mystic Mansion was floating in the air. Qin Yu, Jianglan, Zhuochulin, Yifeng, Kuro, Ho Fei and the rest of the God Kings were all standing in the air. They all had light smiles on their faces. That Black Passage was created by Qin Yu. It was the passage to the New Cosmos. He had deliberately lured these God Kings into the New Cosmos. Little Yu, this move of yours is truly ruthless. Jianglan said with a smile. Ho Fei laughed from the side. Hee, what's there to be ruthless about? Those God Kings are not the slightest bit lenient toward Big Brother. I have already disliked this group of God Kings. Big Brother, this time around, let me properly trample on them. Haha, monkey, you want to trample on those God Kings? Isn't that too despicable? To trample on those God Kings in the New Cosmos? Kuro also started to laugh loudly. In the New Cosmos, Ho Fei had been taught the New Cosmos spatial laws by Qin Yu. And now, he had completely comprehended it. In the New Cosmos, Kuro was able to easily control the New Cosmos spatial energy. However, what about those God Kings? In the Divine Realms Cosmos, they could be considered as God Kings. However, in the New Cosmos, their spatial laws were completely useless. Even their time acceleration was useless. The Azura God King and Blood Sea Queen's time stop were also useless. They were also unable to escape through teleportation. In the New Cosmos, they could only allow themselves to be trampled on. Well then, let's not talk anymore. They're about to arrive. Qin Yu said with a light smile. Immediately, everyone looked to the front. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The Blood Sea Queen was the first to appear in the air. After that, the Azura God King, Sun Lien, Lu Lien, the 8 great sage emperors, and a large group of God Kings also entered in succession. The 20 God Kings stood in the air. Qin Yu, you didn't die? Seeing Qin Yu standing in the air with a light smile, the Blood Sea Queen was shocked. The Azura God King, Jiang Fan, Zhou Xian and the rest of the 8 great sage emperors all looked to Qin Yu in the air not far away with shock. In their hearts, they thought that Qin Yu should have died. Even if he didn't die, he should have been seriously injured. However, from the looks of it, Qin Yu did not seem to have any injuries at all. Ha ha. Qin Yu looked to the 20 God Kings with a smile. Welcome God Kings to my, Qin Yu's, world. Your world. Luo Fan, Shui Yun, Jiang Fan, Zhou Xian and the rest of the 20 God Kings were all confused. Even the space created by the God Kings could only be considered as a space and not a world. What does Qin Yu mean by those words? Jiang Fan and them all started to frown. Qin Yu, enough of your superfluous words. You've been struck by Senior Thunder Punishment Exalted Celestial's attack. Even if you didn't die, you'd still be seriously injured. Stop pretending before us. Quickly, hand over the All-People Seal. That Duanmu roughing was the first to shout. Why bother with superfluous words with them? Let's just capture them directly. Zhou Xian shouted coldly. Zhou Xian was the first to rush forward. Jiang Fan, Shen Tian, Mu Qin, Tang Lan, the 8 great sage emperors all rushed forward. Fuck off, scram! Ho Fei shouted. After that, he held the dark cyan single aura stick and ruthlessly smashed it onto Zhou Xian's body like he was smashing a sandbag. Zhou Xian felt that his entire body was suddenly restricted. He was unable to move at all. He could only watch as the dark cyan single aura stick smashed toward him. Teleport. Zhou Xian wanted to teleport. However, he suddenly discovered that he was unable to sense the fluctuation of spatial energy at all. He was unable to teleport at all. Bang! The dark cyan single aura stick smashed onto Zhou Xian's body. The 7 great sage emperors that came after him also faced the same situation as Zhou Xian. They were unable to teleport and were also restricted. They could only watch as they were smashed. That dark cyan single aura stick continued to smash onto Jiang Fan, Shintayen, Duanmu Rufeng, Mu Qin, Putai Hong and the rest of the sage emperors. Like sandbags, Zhou Xian, Jiang Fan and the rest of the sage emperors were smashed flying by Hou Fei without any resistance. The Azura God King, the Blood Sea Queen and the other God Kings were all stunned. How could this be? The 8 great sage emperors all flew back from afar. Ignoring the blood at the corner of their mouths, the 8 great sage emperors all had expressions of disbelief. Why can't we teleport? Why can't we sense the fluctuation of spatial energy? Why can't we sense the flow of time? The 8 great sage emperors were in a panic. All of you, shut up. Otherwise, eat this lord's stick again. Hou Fei shouted angrily. Immediately, the 8 great sage emperors grew quiet. They all remembered that they, the 8 great sage emperors, were smashed flying by Hou Fei like sandbags. Chapter 677. Clouds were drifting in the sky above the purple mystic star. Qin Yu, Jiang Lan, Jiang Li, Zhuo Chulin, Yi Feng, Kuro and them were all standing to the side. They were all smiling indifferently as they looked at these 20 god kings that had entered the new cosmos. What are you all looking at? Even now, do you all still not know the situation that you're in? Hou Fei carried the dark cyan single aura stick and shouted complacently at the 20 god kings. At this moment, Hou Fei was extremely pleased with himself. In all these years, who in the divine realm was capable of pointing at the 8 great sage emperors, the Azura God King, the Blood Sea Queen and them and scolding them? Furthermore, this group of experts were unable to resist. Where exactly is this place? Zhou Xian was the first to shout. Zhou Xian's eyes were filled with endless confusion, anger and unwillingness. With a low voice, he said angrily, "How could such a place exist? Why is it that the spatial laws and temporal laws are all useless here? In such an enormous cosmos, there are countless spaces. However, no space should be like this. None of them should be like this." Huang Fuyu frowned deeply. His expression was bitter. Once the spatial laws and temporal laws became useless, wouldn't these sage emperors become playthings that could be trampled upon? Jiang Fan, Shintayen, Duanmu Rufeng and them all had extremely ugly expressions. Even the Azura God King Luo Fan, who had always been confident and indifferent, had an unconcealable expression of disbelief and deep worry in his eyes. The 20 God Kings were filled with fear, worry, and disbelief. When the spatial laws and a portion of the temporal laws that they relied on the most were actually completely useless in a place, how could they not be terrified? At this moment, the 20 God Kings' state of mind was the most chaotic. "Li Er, what exactly is going on?" Jiang Fan suddenly said to Jiang Li. Jiang Li was startled and wanted to answer. However, Hou Fei was immediately enraged. He pointed at Jiang Fan and scolded. "Old bastard, how dare you speak to my big sister Li Er like that? Fei, come here. Let those God Kings calm down. They're probably all in a mess right now," Qin Yu said with a faint smile. Hou Fei nodded. Afterwards, Hou Fei pointed at the 20 God Kings from afar. Don't you understand the situation you're in even now? Think about it carefully and understand what attitude you should use to speak to us." Then, Hou Fei flew to Qin Yu's side. Looking at the clouds floating around, the air was fresh and pleasant. However, the 20 God Kings discovered that they had been trapped in a small circle of 100 meters. They were unable to fly out of this range. When they flew to the boundary, they would feel a transparent wall blocking them. Spatial prison, a very ordinary spatial prison. Jiang Fan sighed and said, "How could the 20 God Kings not be able to guess that this spatial prison was a technique that the God Kings often used to trample on Empyrean deities? As long as one did not completely comprehend the spatial laws, it would be impossible for one to escape from it. And now, the 20 God Kings were trapped by the spatial prison. If someone had told the 20 God Kings that they would be trapped by the spatial prison before this, they would definitely not believe it. They definitely wouldn't believe it. But now, the truth had happened. Spatial prison, this this is truly. At this moment, Zhou Xian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. For them to be able to use the spatial prison, it means one thing. The Azura God King was extremely calm. In this damned place, it is possible to use the spatial laws. However, why are we unable to use them? The surrounding God Kings all nodded. Their opponents were able to use the spatial laws. Why were they unable to? Could it be that this Qin Yu possesses a special ability that makes us unable to use the spatial laws and temporal laws? That shouldn't be possible. Putai Hong said with a frown. This group of God Kings had completely walked into a dead end. Right now, they were still thinking that the reason why their opponents were able to use the spatial laws and they were unable to do so was because Qin Yu had used some special ability. Haha, big brother, how do you think we should deal with this group of God Kings? That's simple. We should just kill them. Wouldn't that be very straightforward? Ho Fei's loud laughter sounded from afar. Immediately, the 20 God Kings' discussion came to a halt. They are discussing how to execute us? At this moment, the God King Jiangxing was also worried. The numerous God Kings all turned silent. This spatial prison is completely isolated from the outside world. Sound is definitely unable to enter. The Azura God King Luo Fan said indifferently. This brat Ho Fei deliberately let his voice in so that we could hear it. The Azura God King Luo Fan and Ho Fei were actually master and disciple. Back then, not long after Ho Fei entered the divine realm, he was taken away by Sun Lian. After that, the Azura God King began to teach Ho Fei. Actually, the Azura God King Luo Fan was not worried that Qin Yu would do anything to him. This Ho Fei is actually deliberately trying to scare us? Zhou Xian said angrily. Zhang Fan's voice was a bit gloomy. No, he is not trying to scare us. I'm afraid that Qin Yu and them are truly discussing how to execute us. In here, we simply do not possess any ability to resist. The God Kings immediately grew silent. They all looked toward the distance. In the distance, Qin Yu, Jiang Lan, Zhuo Qiulin and them were discussing something. This group of God Kings all wanted to hear it. However, they were unable to hear it. Kill that Putai Hong. Oh, that's right, big brother, what about this Duanmu roughing? Ho Fei's voice sounded in the spatial prison. Hearing that, the 20 God Kings all felt their hearts violently twitching. As for Putai Hong, his expression had also changed. Brother Putai, don't worry. That Ho Fei is deliberately toying with us. Huang Fuyu immediately consoled Putai Hong. Putai Hong laughed bitterly. Brother Huang Fu, how could I not know that Ho Fei is toying with us? Merely, it is also possible that what Ho Fei said is what they are currently discussing. Sigh. Putai Hong's long sigh caused the God Kings to grow silent. That long sigh contained an endless amount of powerlessness and unwillingness. However, so what? Other than the panic they felt when they discovered that they could not use the spatial laws and temporal laws. Now, the 20 God Kings all understood their situation. They were fish on the chopping block. As for Qin Yu and them, they were the chopping block. Whether they were to be killed or tortured, it was completely up to Qin Yu and them to decide. The God Kings involuntarily looked toward the direction of Qin Yu and them. There were even some God Kings who tried to determine what Qin Yu and them were saying from the movements of their lips. After all, now, Qin Yu and them were the ones who decided their life and death. The feeling of having one's life being controlled by someone else was truly painful. However, no matter how painful it was, they were unable to change this fact. In their hearts, there was an unanswerable question. What exactly is this place? Why is there such a place? This place should not exist in the hearts of the God Kings. However, since this place existed, there was a reason for its existence. The existence of this place also caused the God Kings to allow Qin Yu to slaughter them. This Qin Yu, how many miracles has he created? The Azura God King Luo Fan said to himself as he looked at the distant Qin Yu who was talking and laughing. Using spatial freezing, being able to teleport under the effects of spatial freezing, being able to teleport directly into the exalted celestial mountain. All sorts of things. Qin Yu had created one miracle after another. And now, Qin Yu had brought them to such a place. And now, this miracle-creating Qin Yu was the one who controlled their life and death. Within the white clouds, Qin Yu and them were currently discussing how to execute those God Kings. Big brother, Uncle Lon, there is no need for you all to go through so much trouble. If you all do not have the heart to kill them, then I'll go and kill them. The Azura God King is my master, thus I naturally cannot kill him. Sun Lian is a senior of our ape clan, thus I also cannot kill him. As for that Zhang Fan, although his conduct is truly vile, he is also a father and daughter to big sister Lier. Thus, I'll spare his little life. As for the rest, I'll kill them all. Ho Fei stood to the side. His eyes were flickering with an ominous glint. The current Ho Fei, upon thinking of how he had killed that many God Kings in a single breath, this honor had caused him to become excited. Fei, do not make a ruckus at the side. Zhang Lan berated. Zhang Lan was also a bit angry. This Ho Fei had been enticing Qin Yu to kill the God Kings the entire time. According to what Ho Fei had said, it seemed that the majority of the God Kings had to be killed. Yes, Uncle Lon. Ho Fei curled his lips and then stood to the side without saying anything. Zhang Lan, do not be soft-hearted. I think what Ho Fei said is quite reasonable. Humph, that group of God Kings had killed their way in one by one. Did they even possess a benevolent heart toward us? Since they were able to treat us in such a manner, so what if we kill them? Zhuachulin's hoarse voice sounded. At the same time, she looked to Zhang Lan with her cold gaze. Once Zhuachulin said those words, Zhang Lan grew silent. If there was a person in the divine realm that Zhang Lan feared, then perhaps it would be Zhuachomei's older sister, Zhuachulin. Qin Yu, if you do not wish to kill them, I can do it for you. Zhang Li, do not think too much about it. That Zhang Fan did not care about your relationship as a father and daughter. I will also take care of him for you. Zhuachulin's killing intent was faintly discernible. As the God King of Death, Zhuachulin did not have any qualms about killing others. Qin Yu smiled indifferently. Well then, Senior Zhuachulin, there is no need for you to try to persuade me. I already have the method to take care of them. As he said that, Qin Yu waved his sleeve. Huff! The spatial prison directly disappeared. The 20 God Kings all felt the movement of the air. Immediately, the group of God Kings started to worry. Their gazes were all gathered on Qin Yu and them. They knew that Qin Yu and them had likely already made the decision to take care of them. Big brother, you've decided? How many do you want to kill? Ho Fei immediately asked. When those God Kings heard what Ho Fei said, their complexions immediately turned pale. They then firmly stared at Qin Yu. They wanted to know what Qin Yu's decision was. Qin Yu did not say anything. Instead, he flew toward the 20 God Kings. Ho Fei, Kuro, Zhang Lan, Zhuachulin, Yi Feng, Zhang Li and them also flew over. They flew all the way until they were 10 meters away from the 20 God Kings. Qin Yu, we, the 8 great sage emperors, are bestowed by the heavens and earth. You cannot kill us. Zhou Xian immediately shouted. However, at this moment, Zhou Xian was lacking in confidence. Bestowed by the heavens and earth? Qin Yu smiled. Zhou Xian, do you still remember the first time we met? Zhou Xian was slightly startled. I remember the first time we met. With a wave of your hand, you destroyed an entire city. I still clearly remember the gaze that little boy who was eating Tonghulu looked to me before he died. I have never forgotten that gaze of expectation in my entire life. When I asked you if you were not afraid of the wrath of the heavens after killing so many people, you instead replied me with the words, I understand the heavens better than you. Qin Yu took a long sigh. What's wrong? What's wrong with killing some mortals? Zhou Xian's gaze was cold and detached. He appeared to be very confident. You thought that you understood the heavens. However, in my world, I am the heavens. Qin Yu looked at Zhou Xian with an extremely cold gaze. Now, I declare that you should receive the wrath of the heavens, the punishment of the heavens. Zhou Xian smiled and coldly looked at Qin Yu. You do have the ability to kill me. However, how can the wrath of the heavens be decided by you? Moreover, my Zhou clan is in control of the power of thunder and lightning. We are in control of the ability of the heavens to... Boom! A pitch-black lightning bolt struck down from the sky and ruthlessly struck Zhou Xian's body. Zhou Xian's entire body suddenly twitched and spasmed. However, he still raised his head to look at the sky in disbelief. No, impossible. It is impossible for the lightning to not be under my control. Die. Qin Yu's expression was indifferent. Gold, green, various colored lightning bolts actually mixed together and struck Zhou Xian's body from the sky. They directly struck Zhou Xian into dust. Only the Thunder Origin spiritual pearl remained floating. After dealing with that Zhou Xian, it is time to deal with you all. Qin Yu lightly smiled as he looked to the 19 God Kings on the scene. Seeing Zhou Xian being struck to death by the lightning, the God Kings' hearts immediately grew tense. Seeing the expressions of the God Kings, Qin Yu lightly smiled and said, "Someone suggested that I kill all of you. However, I am not that heartless. Among the 19 of you, there are indeed 4 or 5 that can leave this place without receiving any punishment. For example, Brother Luo Fan and my father-in-law Jiang Fan." Qin Yu looked to Jiang Fan. Hearing those words, Jiang Fan was startled. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.